Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios today on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Boy, I'll say it's exciting. We got football tomorrow night, albeit not the starters, but we do have football with the Titans and the Seahawks. Ian is here. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
I got to tell you, this morning, I did not watch the local news this morning, but my mom did. And she told me that apparently they were talking on the local news when they were doing the traffic, and they said, is it a holiday today? Because apparently the roads were somewhat clear or something like that. I don't know. She said that, and then they said that later in the newscast, they said, no, it's picked up. And I told her, I said, well, you know, I go on Robbie and Rex Road at 7 o'clock every Friday morning. My guess is, and I could be wrong about this, my guess is they probably waited a little bit later to commute because they wanted to hear me on Robbie and Joe.
Probably.
I mean, that's what it has to be. And there is something that Joe Rex Road said today that stuck with me. There's something Joe said to me today on Robbie and Rex Road that has stuck with me in a negative way. And then there's something Joe said after I was off the show, I think in a positive way. We're going to start with the thing Joe said to me in a negative way because I can't get this off my mind. And this is in reference to the last 2 days of practice that Will Levis had against the Seattle Seahawks. Guys, it was bad. And it's okay to admit that it was bad. The offense's job is to score points. And again, in the real true scrimmaging periods, they didn't score points. I even said this on Monday, on Titans Monday. I even said, hey, they passed the first test. They scored on the on the San Francisco backups. Good job. But we expect the starters of an NFL team to score on the backups of an NFL team, right? Like we expect the varsity to be able to beat the JV. And that's what happened on Saturday night. So it's like, okay, thumbs up. Now let's see what they do. And granted, they really only had one real drive. I know they scored 2 touchdowns on Saturday against San Francisco, but they only really had one sustained drive because Keiris Jackson and Kyle Shanahan put the ball at the 15-yard line for the first drive. So they have one sustained drive against the San Fran backups. Good enough. You can only play who they put out there. They put out the Scarbinis and you beat them. Then you go into this one. And I said on Monday, I said, let's see how they do against Seattle. And the answer is not well. The offense as a whole was poor. And we can break down each individual opportunity they had that was missed. We can talk about, well, is it the offensive line? Is it the receivers and the fact that DeAndre was out and Tyler Boyd was out? Is it, hey, Levis and Ridley are working out the kinks? Is it the fact that they don't have a tight end? All the things that we've talked about. And then it hit me today when I was talking about I can't tell you why. I can just tell you how. I can't tell you why the Titans didn't play well offensively against Seattle. I can just tell you that they didn't. And Joe said, well, but it's different in a game. It'll be different in a game because they'll be scheming more and they'll have, yes, it'll be different. They'll have a specific plan for the scheme that they will have spent a week preparing for. They will come back to the sideline after a drive, and instead of sending out the second team and Brian Callahan calling plays for Mason Rudolph, he'll be sitting down on the bench with the iPad with Will Levis, and they'll be going over what the plan is for the next series. Granted, the other team gets to do that too, by the way. But, okay, it's different in a game. And Callahan this and Will Levis that and, experience this. I got it. So does practice not mean anything anymore? Does it not matter at all? Now, I know in the grand scheme of things, no, practice does not matter. Patrick Mahomes threw 4 interceptions in his first practice, his second year as a starter of the Chiefs, and people said, oh my God, he threw 4 interceptions. Are we doomed with Mahomes? And he had one of the best seasons really of all time, and that was his first year as a starter in Kansas City. I got it. But you can't get excited when T'Vondre Sweat starts dominating in practice and we get all giddy about it, or lose your pants over the video of Jeffrey Simmons chucking Laken Tomlinson to the ground, which, by the way, happened to find its way onto social media. It's hilarious to me that the media not allowed to shoot and practice. Everybody put your cameras down, put your phones down. This is, embargoed. If this is incredibly sensitive information. They do something good, they put it on social media. Hey, look at what we did. So when something good happens in practice, when Jaquan Jackson takes football, runs right up the field, scores a touchdown, we all get excited. They put it out on social media. That counts. That matters. But the bad doesn't matter. Is that what I am supposed to understand here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday? That we are supposed to not be concerned with the fact that for 2 days, the Tennessee Titans on offense, they didn't do anything. They did not do anything. They did not move the football effectively against Seattle. And I will push back this morning. Joe was like, what do you mean you can't tell about running the ball in practice? The only thing that's different is they can't tackle you. Everything's different. Again, running the football, that is all about tackling. That's the whole key. So I don't get giddy one way or another over who runs the ball well in practice. That is we'll see it in the game, and that one is different than everything else. But when it comes to pass rushing, and Nick Suss is telling me, it was bad in the one-on-ones for the offensive line. Only Skoronski looked good. Everybody else, PT kept getting called for holding, and Latham was getting beat by Leonard Williams, and I guess that doesn't count. Levis throws an interception on the first play of the 2-minute drill. I guess that doesn't count. We only want to hear the good stuff. The good stuff that happens in practice, that counts. But the bad stuff doesn't count. If I am supposed to understand this correctly. And this is where I have a hard time. Really with kind of this sentiment surrounding the football team. This was a bad football team last year. We all know it. So do they. They fired the coach. They went out, made some moves in free agency, still had some holes, made a couple of draft picks. And now all of a sudden, it's like with a new coach, everybody's convinced themselves that this team is something that right now I don't think they are. And I think there are a lot of people that are just denying it because it makes it more entertaining. It makes it more comforting. It appeases their beliefs more so than really gives a temperature check of where this football team is right now. All I keep hearing is that practice doesn't matter. And people couch it with a practice matters, but I have never traveled in a media capacity to a Titans away game except for the AFC Championship game in 2019. Floyd and I went to that, and we did special shows out in Kansas City, and we were at the game in the press box, and I got to tell you, I hate watching the game in the press box because I am a Titan fan, so I sit up there, and when they don't convert on third down, but you can't say that up in the press box. But I don't travel to road games. There's no reason for a drive time radio host to travel on the road with the team if they're not like also a beat writer. Like Joe travels, but he's a columnist that's also a radio host. I'm not. But when I do travel? I traveled in 2021 when the Titans went to Tampa Bay to scrimmage the Buccaneers. Came back on Friday. I went on Thursday. I was there. I think I went on Tuesday evening. I was there on Wednesday and Thursday. I flew back first thing Friday morning. Then, didn't travel at all in 2022. 2023, Titans go to Minnesota, fly out on Tuesday, took the Tuesday off to fly to Minnesota to go watch practice on Wednesday and Thursday. And the reason why I do that is because I know you care. Because this is the first time where you're going up against another team. And I have to tell you, in 2021, when the Titans went to the defending world champions and played the greatest player who ever lived in practice and kicked that ass on that Wednesday, there were a lot of people that were really excited about it. And guess what about that 2021 football team? They were pretty good. So I guess what I'm saying is it's okay to think that there's a possibility that this team can get better, because they can. And it's okay to think that they have the right coach to get the offense better. And it's okay to think, hey, Levis and Ridley, they're not there yet, but they need more reps like these in order to get there. So come Chicago, they'll be able to connect and they'll put the ball in the end zone. But to just dismiss it like it didn't happen, when if Levis and company went out there and dominated Seattle's defense, you guys would be saying, we told you. Yes, now we got the coach, we got the court. Did you see the highlight of that 80-yard pass? And that's the problem that I have with this. Is it's like, what do you want? Do you want to know what actually happened? Or do you want to couch it with a bunch of excuses because it doesn't go against the win-loss record? And that's something for you to decide. But for me, practice matters. This week was a look in the mirror. And the look in the mirror is where we stand right now. This offense isn't good enough. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. And coming up next, I do wonder, are we going to know when it comes to Will Levis? Like, is this the year where we're going to know? We'll get to that coming up. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 1025, 106 for the game. feel like there's time to work on those things now that the joint practices are behind you? Or are you worried that right now that might be what the team is?
Oh, no, I don't think that. We got plenty of situational work coming up. We have a whole situational practice coming up as well. So no, this is just part of the process. Again, would have loved to see us be able to go 5, 6, 7 plays and have a shot at the end zone to win the game in that situation. And we didn't. And so we got to go back and learn from whatever that is that the mistake was. And you can't turn the ball over if you want to have a chance to win the game with a minute left. And so I think that's really all. To me, it's an isolated incident to the practice today, and we'll keep moving forward.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday after Will Levis threw an interception on pass number 1 of the 2-minute drill. I am going to have to get on myself, though, for a second. Ian, you are familiar with the term projection.
Sure.
Can we play that cut again, that question that I asked? And you tell me if I'm asking him, it almost sounds like I am asking him my feelings without saying they're my feelings. Play the cut. Do you feel like there's time to work on those things now that the joint practices are behind you? Or are you worried that right now that might be what the team is?
Oh, no, I don't.
Stop right there. It's like, so, do you think there's time to fix this, or are you worried that, hey, it's joint practices and you're not going to go trade for a right tackle at this point? Like, PT's the guy. Like, it is what it is. Like, this is your team, and this is the litmus test against Seattle, and you failed, and are you worried? And it's almost like, again, I'm asking him the question, but it's really, Coach, I'm scared to death about the offense right now. And I did not hide that projection very well, I don't think. But that is how I feel. Now, let me just say this. Because I think Joe said this this morning when I was on Robbie and Joe. And he said it yesterday before the press conference about, oh, you're just the prisoner of every moment. They had 2 bad days of practice, and now you're about to freak out, and you're just a... Right. What do you want me to tell you about joint practice? Yesterday was a show from 2 to 6, in which for 4 hours, minus 1 segment on Deion Sanders, for 4 hours, we talked about joint practices. So, of course, I'm going to say what happened in joint practices, and what happened in joint practices was bad. I don't understand, like, what about prisoner of the moment or just reacting to what has just happened? Because I can react to what happened last year. I can react to what happened 2 years ago. I mean, let's go back to when the Titans were 7-3 and they had just beaten Green Bay on Thursday Night Football. What happened to that football team? Let's take your calls. Or do you want to talk about what we just saw that may have something to do with this season? And again, I don't think it's prisoner of the moment to say, hey, this team's got to get better now. It's like I've become obsessed with the election. I know I've told you guys that, and I vow to this, and I mean, I think my reputation speaks for itself, but like, I'm obsessed with like the data of the election, like the polling and the, this unskew that poll, and then this and the aggregator and where it comes from and the models I just am obsessed with it. And I say that because every single one of these bozos that does these polls and then gets on TV and talks about them says, well, you have to remember that a poll is a snapshot in time. It is not a reflection of what the election is going to be. They say it every time. Well, what happened the last 2 days against the Seahawks? That's a snapshot in time. That is saying that where they sat the last 2 days wasn't good enough. Now, Brian Callahan absolutely has time to fix this. 3 weeks, I think. I mean, they can't go add a bunch of different players, but as far as the scheme, and coaching matters with this stuff, and the scheme matters too, because we saw Sean McVay take over the Rams and immediately flip them into an offensive juggernaut. So maybe Callahan can do that. And over the course of the season, they can get better. But there's no guarantee they're going to do that. And I think we have to be reasonable in saying where they sit right now is not good enough. Unless you're okay with starting the year off 1-3 or 0-4. But the idea to sit there and watch the 2 days of practice and then just say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. It doesn't count because they can scheme up things up. It doesn't count because Boyd didn't practice and DeAndre didn't practice, as if injuries don't happen in games. So it doesn't count. It doesn't count because it's 3 weeks till Chicago. It doesn't count because that's great. But if you want a snapshot of where the football team is, specifically the offense right now, the only way to get it is from the Seattle game. You're not going to get it from the San Francisco game because San Francisco didn't play any starters. You're not going to get it tomorrow night because you're not going to play any starters, which I'm not sure I totally agree with, by the way. You're not gonna get that in the New Orleans game because what are the odds that you play your starters for 3 drives and New Orleans plays their starters for 3 drives in the last preseason game? I'm going to guess 0. So this is where you are right now, and they need to look in the mirror. And I hope, Brian Callahan is very, very peachy. But I hope they are looking in the mirror. But the amount of people that get mad at the guy who says, hey, by the way, at practice today, they weren't very good. By the way, everybody else saw the same thing. But the idea of, I hate this show because you have the balls to say that Will Levis didn't look good. Okay. Honestly, it's a little too over the top. It is what it is. It happened. Now we go from there. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Trevor and Dixon kicks us off today and says, quote, I used to tune into your show when the GM was still here, mainly to hear your takes and disagree with 90% of them. A lot of people, I think, did that. However, this take and recently most of your takes are spot on. Titans fans need to take the blindfolds to negatives off and focus on ups and downs and the same instead of make excuses for failures. You know what practice has kind of been for me? As far as at least this year, I can't remember the years past because I don't remember if we complained about Andre Dillard and the fan. Oh, no, Jared Vrabel's right. Arden Key's great. I don't know if the fans did that or not. And I'm not going to say they did because I can't remember if they did or didn't. I'm not going to accuse them of that. But it's like bowling with bumpers is what it is. You roll the ball right down the middle, strike, you get that X right there on the screen. But fans don't want to hear about the gutter ball. That doesn't count. It hits the bumper, and it comes in, and 4 pins. See, it was actually good that you threw a gutter ball there. And that's what this is becoming. I don't like that. Because I just don't think that that's the truth. There's a big difference between affirmation and information. I'm very big on information. One texter says, this team was not good last year. A lot of people said it can't be fixed in 1 year. Now, yes, they can get better. So I wish I had read this text in the start of the next segment, because I do wonder how critical the right now is to the big picture about Will Levis. So I'm going to save that to the side, and I do wonder how important that, being good right now, being good week 1 against Chicago, how important that is. I'm going to put that to the side for a second because I think it's a much larger discussion. Because I did do some math today. Math might not be the right research. That's the right word. I did do some research today. I have a thought on that. Caleb in Gallatin says, I think it's easier to tell when someone is not the guy. But what do you need to see from Levis to confirm that he is the guy? A certain amount of touchdowns, passing yards, or just his overall progression from game to game? That comes from Caleb in Gallatin. The reality is you need the quarterback to win. And I know football is a team game, and it is not just about the quarterback. But very rarely is a quarterback the guy and their football team not win. Right now, I think the only guy in the NFL who has not won anything, not a division, not a playoff game, and has gotten the big money. Well, I take that back. I think there are 2. And one of them, I don't think is the guy. Justin Herbert and Tua. And you know I don't think Tua is the guy. Herbert, they made the playoffs his third year. His second year, they almost made the playoffs, but Bozo, the coach, screwed it up. But Herbert threw for 5,000 yards his second year in the NFL. He's the only guy who hasn't won anything who I look at and say, that's the guy. He's the only one. Other than that, every single other quarterback in the league, they won at least something. Mahomes, by his second year, they were in the AFC title game. Lamar, league MVP, number one seed, second year in the league. Josh Allen in the playoffs. And we know that Josh Allen has won some games before he got that big contract in 2021. I'm not saying these guys have to win the Super Bowl. But in the case of Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy and those guys have been, Jalen Hurts, those guys have been to the Super Bowl. So you say like, hey, what do you have to see to be the guy? The answer is winning. That's the answer. And I do want to share with some research with you on that. Dylan just texted in and said, what about Trevor Lawrence? Dylan, I hate to break it to you, but you do know who won the division in 2022, right? And won a playoff game. And even him, I'm a little on. But I did do some research on the whole idea of winning and what it means for being the guy. And I do wonder what this means for, hey, it's going to be a process. It'll take some time. They can get better. I do wonder what that is. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. You know I love Fireball whiskey. Goes down so smooth, and it tastes so great. There's no better way to start your weekend and ignite the night than to do so with ice-cold Fireball Cinema Whiskey. I will be in Canada this weekend. And to celebrate my first step on Canadian soil in the last decade, I'm going to have to enjoy some ice-cold Fireball Cinema Whiskey. You know I love Fireball. Goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. Night to night, please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
my goal the whole time is try not to lose sight of what this season is about, and that is determining whether or not you got a franchise quarterback.
I'm going to do a fast forward to 1 year from now, Robbie. And this is what we're going to be saying.
Oh, boy.
Well, this year, this 2025 season, it's about knowing for sure if Will Levis is your franchise quarterback. He was pretty good last year. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad. He was pretty good. So this year, we're going to find out if he was a franchise. And, of course, if that's the case, then, like, they have to know next year, right? But I would take bets on that right now.
That was Joe this morning. I heard it, and I was like, boy, I don't like agreeing with Joe Rexroad, but he's right. Ian, if you had to bet 1 year from now, are we sitting around the fire still saying, is Levis the guy or not? Would you say yes, or do you think that we'll either know he's the guy or they'll have dumped him and moved on?
That is a good question. I guess there's a pretty good chance we could still have the same kind of question going into next season.
What do you think is most likely?
Probably the same question. I don't, as far as if you had to pick, he's a star or they dump him or we're in evaluation mode again, I'll go evaluation mode.
Okay. I agree. And I thought to myself, okay, how important is it, to know? And how important is it to, again, to take out the whole, talking yourself into, well, this wasn't his fault. And if this and let's just look at winning. Because again, they asked the question, what do you need to see to know if he's the guy? And outside of Herbert, for me, every single quarterback that's any good in the NFL right now wins. Every single one of them. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Herbert doesn't win. Rodgers, CJ Stroud, one in year one. Stafford, Prescott, Hurts, Goff, Purdy. I think those are the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And guess what? Those dudes, for the most part, win. And again, I'm not saying win the Super Bowl because only one guy wins the Super Bowl every year. And this decade, it's pretty much Mahomes. But I am realistic in saying, okay, what are the records of these guys in year number 2? These guys that are going to go to the Hall of Fame or have already gone to the Hall of Fame. So I did the research this morning. How many quarterbacks come out of year 2 as the guy on a losing team? By my research, Drew Brees' Chargers were 8-8. So he technically wasn't on a losing team. Now, Steve Young was 2-14 in Tampa. And we know Steve Young is a slam dunk, no doubt Hall of Famer. I don't know if he was first ballot. I assume he was. So Steve Young's the one guy. And let's not forget, Steve Young, that's a very, very extraordinary circumstance where he was on the most fracata organization in the NFL in that time, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then he gets picked up by the best organization with the best coach who then sits him behind Joe Montana. And when he takes over, he's got Jerry Rice. That is the greatest, probably the greatest offensive coach in the history of the NFL. But Steve Young was it. So I went through this morning. Let's talk about the slam dunks. We know they're great. They've been great. They're Brady, year number 2, 11-3 and a Super Bowl. I'd say it's pretty good. They knew that he was the guy enough that they got rid of Drew Bledsoe. Peyton Manning, 13-3, year number 2. Aaron Rodgers, 11-5, year number 2 as a starter. Remember, Aaron sat the bench for a lot of years. There's no way to take his year 2 because he didn't play. But year 2 as a starter, Aaron was 11-5, made the playoffs. Montana, this was year 3 because he only started 1 game his first year and started 7 games his second year. His first full year as a starter, year 3, Montana, 13-3. Marino, 14-2. Mahomes, 12-4. You see what I'm saying? So those are the greats. Like all those guys, slam dunk first ballot guys. Then the other guys. Brett Favre, 8-5, his second year in the league, made the Pro Bowl, winning record. Kurt Warner in the Super Bowl, 13-3, Super Bowl champ. Ben Roethlisberger, 9-3. Eli Manning, 11-5. Even Matt Ryan, who is, I think, going to make the Hall of Fame, and I will never, ever, ever accept it. He's going to make it based off of some guru nerds that say that his win rate stat, whatever. He's a baseball selection where the stats say Matt Ryan should be in the Hall of Fame, but all of our, eyeballs tell us not. Even Matt Ryan was 9-5. So if Will Levis is going to be the guy, and let's not kid ourselves here. When we talk about the guy, we're talking about Hall of Famer, right? Like, we're not talking about Dak Prescott. We'll settle for Dak Prescott, but I don't think that we're sitting here right now saying, God, I hope this young quarterback who's going to usher in a new era of Titan football is into this new stadium is going to be Dak Prescott, who every year throws for 4,000 yards and never wins playoff games. So we want Hall of Famer. We might settle for less, but that's what we really talk about. If you don't want another Ryan Tannehill, then it's Hall of Famer. The odds tell us we'll know right away. The odds tell us that they'll win a bunch of games this year. And because of that, we'll know. And again, the answer to that is right away. We'll know. So I know I preached patience, and I use the Green Bay Packers as the example from last year, saying, hey, they were 3-6, and the general manager came out, and he was like, hey, we'll see on Jordan Love. And then they were 6-8, and they beat Carolina by 3, and then they didn't lose again, and Jordan Love balled out in the playoffs against Dallas, and he had a very good game against San Francisco, and their kicker blew the game. And so now he's $55 million, and I'm not a Jordan Love hater. Tua signed the same day as Jordan Love. I lost my mind over Tua. Jordan Love, again, if you say they shouldn't give him the money, then you're saying, well, I think that the owner should have more money, and I certainly don't feel that way. So that was the going rate, and Jordan Love signed for it, got it. But I don't look at Green Bay and think that he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. It was his first year starting, so this would be his second year starting, the same metric we're kind of using. But even then, I'm not completely chips pushed in the middle saying, hey, Jordan Love's going to be like those other guys, Brady and Ben and Manning and Rodgers. And even then, we're expecting a winning record this year from Jordan Love. So long story short, when you ask me kind of what defines the guy, for me, it's the winning. Winning is what defines you're the guy. One guy, Herbert, is really the guy, and he hasn't won anything. Everybody else has at least won something, whether it's Burrow winning an AFC, whether it's Josh Allen winning the division over and over again, whether it's Mahomes with his Super Bowl, Lamar with his 2 MVPs, Brock Purdy, Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl. Those guys, they win something. Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl in year 2. And for a while in Seattle, Russell was the guy. So we talk about it's going to take time. It's going to, we need to be patient. And obviously what we saw in the joint practices offensively wasn't good enough. And look, winning is a lot more than just Will Levis. If the defense gives up 18 points a game, it'll be a lot easier for Will Levis to win these games and to go 13-4 than it will be if they give up 28 points a game. But unless you're Steve Young, who went 2-14 in year number 2, and Breeze was pretty awful in year 3. But unless you're Steve Young, chances are you're not the guy if you don't win in year 2. And I'd be saying the same thing if I was on the radio in Indianapolis, and the same thing if I was on the radio in Carolina. If I was on the radio in Carolina, and I think that is a gong show of an organization. But if I was on the radio in Carolina, I would be saying, hey, Peyton Manning took over the worst team in the NFL. They were 3-13 his first year. Guess what? They were 13-3 year 2. Joe Burrow took over the worst team in the NFL. They were awful. I think he won 4 games as a rookie. Got hurt. Guess what? They were in the Super Bowl in year 2. If Bryce Young's so good that you're going to trade all those picks and DJ Moore in order to be able to get him, you'll know in year 2. I kind of feel the same way when it comes to Will Levis. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Doug in Franklin says, Jared, no doubt Will Levis needs to step up, but can we pair second-year records? Don't you also have to, I guess it's can pair, I think it's compare. When we compare second-year records, don't you also have to compare rosters? Well, I don't know how you do that. I mean, how do you compare Eli Manning's 2004 Giants roster to the Tennessee Titans 2024 roster? I don't know how you do that. And I've told you guys time and time again, I told you guys after the first practice against Seattle on Wednesday, I said, I don't know if Levis was the problem today. You know, Burks cramped up on one throw, and Ridley, according to Ridley, didn't run hard on another throw, and all of those things. But if they played the way they played Wednesday in a game, they would lose. And if they lost, we would say, Will Levis, gotta do better. Will Levis, gotta do better. We'd be saying that because that's how we view football. I mean, we can argue that winning and losing isn't a quarterback stat, but all the guys that are good win, except for Herbert. And even then, I think there are some of you out there and Justin Herbert threw for 5,000 yards in year 2. And I think there are still some of you out there that are like, I'm not sure Herbert's all that good. In fact, I would say there's a lot of you that are out there that think that. So you're asking me to compare rosters. I don't know how to compare the 2024 Tennessee Titans roster to the 1999 Indianapolis Colts. The other thing, too, is that we know the stories of all those guys, and we don't know the stories of these guys. Tajay Spears might end up in the Hall of Fame. He might not. I don't know. But we know when looking at that Colts team that Marvin Harrison's in the Hall of Fame and Edgerrin James is in the Hall of Fame. And quite frankly, I don't think either guy ends up in the Hall of Fame if it's not for Peyton Manning anyways, which again speaks to Peyton's greatness, which you knew in year 2. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of your phones to get to. It's your day on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, so that's what we're going to do. 615-737-1025 here on our program. Again, it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Hey, tune in to 1025 The Game on Sunday for coverage of the Firekeepers Casino 400. Coverage will begin at 12:30. The race is at 1:30. Coverage also available on the 1025 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com.
Back at Nissan Stadium, the Tennessee Titans still lead the San Francisco 49ers 14-7 with 15 minutes left to play. Now in the second quarter, we asked our Expo question. It was a simple one. Will Levis be the Titans' era's first 4,000-yard passer? And right now, the fans are believers. 78% of them say yes, he will. 22% say no. Guys, last year, if you take Jake Browning and you project his numbers over 17 games, it's 4,700 yards. I think it's a slam dunk.
And Corey, remember, Derrick Henry's not here heating up 25 carries a game. I mean, that changes things. That changes how the offense runs. And that gives Will Levis that opportunity as well.
You know, I'd like to think that having Derrick Henry on your team actually helps you throw for more yards, because Tannehill threw for 3,800 in 2020 when Derrick ran for 2,000. But what do I know? In Titan land, 78% think he's going to throw for 4,000 yards. By the way, Corey will be on with us next hour, as he always is on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey and I may have a wager, Ian, on the over-under 4,000 yards.
Fun.
By the way, Ian, I think you hate my last take about all those quarterbacks and those records.
Why?
Because I don't think you think wins are a quarterback stat.
I am a little torn on that. Yeah. About wins being a quarterback stat.
And I understand.
Yeah. I mean,
understand.
I know it's like, you know, part of the stats, and they have their record on their wins and losses, but I do think there's more than just your quarterback winning and losing every game.
I agree. But I looked up, again, these quarterbacks are going to make the Hall of Fame. Even Rivers, I think, was 11-5 his second year as a starter.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I mean,
in the NFL.
I mean, if you want your quarterback to be the guy, he has to carry you to some wins.
Yeah, you got to win some games.
You got to win some games. And I get that. And that makes sense. You can't, you know, have a terrible record and just expect to be some type of, you know, top level quarterback. I guess I understand where you're coming from, but.
And again, unless you want to be Steve Young, and Steve Young was on a terrible team. And so when Steve Young was on a terrible team, they were terrible, and he's the one guy. Other than that, I mean, I looked them all up. I'm like, hey, let's see, you know, this guy's Hall of Fame. He was good year 2 as a starter. One texter says, with knowing what you already know about Ryan Tannehill and still don't know about Will Levis until we see how he plays this year, would you feel more comfortable with Tannehill as the quarterback with these new weapons than you currently feel about Will Levis? Let me say this. If my family was on the line and I had to win a football game right now, and I can have Levis as the quarterback with this offense, or I can have Tannehill as the quarterback with this offense, I'm picking Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill would have given you a better chance to win right now. But we know what the ceiling is with Ryan Tannehill, and we know that Will Levis has a significant amount of talent that could surpass that ceiling of Ryan Tannehill. And we also know that Ryan Tannehill maybe has one more year left in him, whereas Will Levis could play for another, if he's the guy, 15 years. So I'm not saying it's wrong to go away from Tannehill and go to Levis. I mean, I said after the Atlanta game, once Levis had the Atlanta game, once the young guy proves he's ready for the NFL, and that proved that he was ready, the young guy plays. At that point, the horse has left the barn. You can't go back. But you're asking me, you know, if I had to pick one or the other and I had to go with, to me, it would be Tannehill. And I could be wrong about that. And Levis could come out this year and go 13-4 and follow right in the footsteps of all those other guys. One texter says, I don't think many people would be shocked if the Packers end up 7-10 this year. They might not predict it, but it would definitely be possible. And Jordan Love would be a big reason. This is why we play, because I don't know about what's going to happen. And neither do you, and neither does any of these expert prognosticators and everything else. See, I would have been hesitant to give Jordan Love the money that they gave him. Like, that is we know he's the guy contract. And part of me thinks, you know, teams love their identities. The Titans have tried to get away from their identity for years, and it hasn't worked. You know, they brought in Ken Wisenhunt, revolutionized the offense, Ken Wisenhunt. And then it's like, oh, God, this is terrible. Let's get back to running the football. Revolutionize the offense, Matt LaFleur. Oh, no. Let's get back to running the football with Derrick Henry. But some teams love their identities so much that they cannot help themselves but do something because of it. It's like, I believe, and I'm a Tomlin fan, but I believe it's time for a change in Pittsburgh. Like, I think it's time to start over. Ben's gone. They've got some good players, but I really don't think the Steelers have a team that is good enough to compete for the Super Bowl, and they're running it back with Russell Wilson, and it's like, let's just start over. And it looked like at the end of this year, it looked like that's where the Steelers and Tomlin were headed. Like, it's been a great run, but all good things come to an end. But the Steelers gave him an extension because to me, I think the Steelers look at themselves in the mirror and they're like, our identity is we never change coaches. That's our identity. And I think the Packers look at their identity and it is we have quarterbacks for 15, 20 years at a time. So they looked at it and said, we want this guy 20 years. 20 years. He's our guy, give him $55 million a year. And I don't know if he's really that good or if it's as much as they want him to be good for whatever that's worth. One texter says, if we use the metric of second-year starter, then next year will be Will Levis's year that we should know if he's the guy. No, I mean, Levis started, what did he start, 9 games last year? Like, he started last year. It's a 17-game season. He started 9 of them, I believe. Is that right? He started 9 games, Ian? I think he was 3-6 as a starter.
Sounds about right, yeah.
So, no, this is his second year as a starter. To me, like the guy's, second year as a starter, or when it's like Aaron Rodgers' 5th year in the league, Jordan Love this year, it's guys that just didn't play. Like Aaron Rodgers didn't play. Jordan Love didn't play. Like those guys didn't play. Levis played. So, no, we're not giving him a gimme year. One texter says, Bill Parcells used to say after 30 starts, the quarterback is who he is. Levis has 9 starts, so he's a third of the way through. And after this year, in which they play 17 games, and let's say Levis plays 17, which there's no guarantee, especially based off the hit that he took the other night. If Levis plays 17 games, then you'll pretty much you'll be real close to 30. 615-737-1025 is our phone number on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. 615-737-1025 here on the program. So Brian Callahan has said the starters get the night off tomorrow night. Number one, I'm not sure I like that. Number two, who is defined as a starter on this team? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 here on our program. Nashville's best deal of the week is Soar Adventure Tower, where there's adventure for everyone of all ages. Get a $100 gift card for just $50 and book family fun, your next office outing or birthday party. Soar Adventure Tower is 4 levels of fun with easy to difficult obstacles to choose from. Plus, there's an 18-hole mini golf course. Get your $100 gift card for just $50 now at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Titans and Seahawks tomorrow on News 2. I know yesterday we got mad at Brian Callahan for disagreeing with what Calvin Ridley said about his effort level, but I would say, compared to the previous coach, it does kind of feel like Brian Callahan's got this George Washington quality to him where it's like he cannot tell a lie sometimes. Again, compared to Vrabel. Mike, are the starters going to play on Saturday? I mean, you have to see who's going to play on Saturday. Brian, are the starters going to play on Saturday? No. The starters are not going to play. But I have actually thought to myself, well, who on this team is a starter? Because I think there is a difference between a starter and somebody who is starting. And I think, to me, there's a clear definition between the two. Kenneth Murray, starter. Jack Gibbons, starting. Does it make sense? If you're a legitimate NFL starter, like L'Jarius Sneed, like Will Levis, like Calvin Ridley, then maybe you go ahead and have the night off. But the Titans, and this has been a problem for the last couple of years, the Titans, and I'm sure every team is like this, but the Titans have especially been like this lately, always have a couple of guys that really aren't NFL caliber starters, but they find themselves in the starting lineup. And because of that, I wonder, hey, are we treating those guys like they're starters? Or are we treating them like, hey, we got to see if this guy can do it. If not, we got to get somebody else in there. So here's who I think should get the night off tomorrow. If, again, the starters are getting the night off because they practiced hard the last 2 days and it was hot outside. Levis, Spears, Pollard, Ridley, Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Landry, Simmons, Sweat, Murray, Gibbons, McCreary, Hooker, Adams, Diggs, and I was on the fence with Gibbons. On the fence. That's the varsity team. You guys get the night off. Now, I do wonder, normally teams like to play rookies in there, and I say J.C. Latham and Tavondre Sweat don't play, but that's because J.C. Latham and Tavondre Sweat are starters. But outside of that group, everybody else should play. Burks, he should play. He is not a starter. He should play. And he should prove that if DeAndre is out for Chicago, that he should be on the field. NWI, he should play. He's not a starter. Chigakonkwo should play. He's not a starter. And then the two guys that I think are going to get the night off, who absolutely, positively should not get the night off, Dylan Radins and Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT. Those two should play. Especially Radins. But I think PT should play because he's more important. I can't imagine Radins not playing tomorrow night, given that the coach has openly said that there is a position battle between him and Andrew Rupchich for the right guard spot. So if there's a battle, normally what happens is one guy plays, then the other guy goes in there and plays. And with PT is the starter at right tackle on this team by default. He's had some okay reps in practice. He's had some bad reps in practice. That's not a good thing. And I'll tell you why. Because in an NFL game, you take about 60 offensive snaps. PT's not going to give up 60 sacks. So when you say, well, he had one bad rep and then he had one good rep, well, that's not good. Because again, in the NFL, you play 60 snaps. You hope you don't give up any sacks that game, but at a maximum, give up one. But the other thing is, he's missed way too much time. Like, those are banked in reps that he hasn't received over the last year and a half, and he needs the reps. And I would argue, too, even though it is almost impossible for me to see the Titans get themselves out of a jam if he's not good enough to play right tackle, because the guys behind him, Duncan and John Ojukwu, are terrible, so that's not even a possibility. They need to know if he can actually play right tackle or not, because if he can't play right tackle, they went into the year thinking one of these guys can play right tackle. Now they've already determined that two of the three can't play right tackle, which means he's the only guy on this team that can play right tackle. Well, you need to know if he can play or not, and if he can't, then you need to start searching the waiver wire to find somebody else. And it would be very disheartening after spending an entire winter begging them to sign a right tackle or get a right tackle or trade for Morgan Moses or draft a second tackle or whatever for them to not have the guy. But they need to know. When you're a large person, you don't like to step on the scale sometimes because it's just the anxiety of knowing what the number is. But sometimes you got to know. And that's how I feel like they are at right tackle. So I don't care if Levis, I do think Levis probably should play. And if Levis plays, then the whole offense should probably play because I think Levis could use the reps. But if he says the starters aren't going to play, to me, that's Levis, Spears, Pollard, Ridley, Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Landry, Simmons, Sweat, Murray, Gibbons, McCreary, Hooker, Adams, Diggs. And then, of course, with, Awuzie and Snead and those guys, they're hurt. So DeAndre, they're not going to play either. 615-737-1025. SD says, we keep talking about assessing Levis and other guys if they are the guy. But how would you assess if Brian Callahan is the guy or the right guy for the job? Is winning enough? Mike Vrabel won a lot until he didn't. How would you disassociate the quarterback from the coach? Most of the time, we don't do that. Most of the time, we do not disassociate the coach from the quarterback. Kansas City's an example of that. Brady and Belichick, that's an example of that. So if the team wins, we'll love Brian Callahan because he won, and they will give Will Levis a $250 million contract. But it probably will take a little while to know whether or not Brian Callahan's the guy coach. And the one thing that I think a lot of people have lost sight of in the NFL is GMs don't really get second chances. And I don't think that's a very good idea, only because how many GMs had a shot at being GM and for whatever reason it didn't work? Drafted the wrong guy, bad quarterback, running back got hurt, hired the wrong coach, whatever, bad owner. How many guys get a shot as GM and don't get a second shot, but always say, if I had another shot, this is what I would do? So there are going to be some growing pains when it comes to Brian Callahan's coaching. I'd say it probably takes about a year. And then you have an idea of whether or not you have the guy. Larry says, Jared, with the exception of Joe Burrow, most of these quarterbacks in their second year had excellent offensive lines, where Levis doesn't. Shouldn't a team be built like these other teams, the offensive line first, and then go get the quarterback? Well, hate to break it to you, I don't know what Eli Manning's offensive line in year 2 in New York looked like. I know he won 11 games. So I can't tell you the micro analysis of each one of those quarterbacks other than to say they had winning records. But yeah, I do think that's important. 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis joins us next from News 2. He'll be on the sideline for the game tomorrow night. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Durham at 5:35. 94.9 The Fan on the 94.9 The Fan app or 949thefan.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, Caldwell Vet Clinic, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. So Corey Curtis ran a poll on Twitter on Saturday's game, as he always does on the News 2 broadcast of the preseason. And the question was, will Levis throw for 4,000? Will Levis throw for 4,000 yards this season? And 78% of you said yes. Which, by the way, a lot of you need to put your money where your mouth is, because I think he is, plus 320, somebody said on FanDuel, to throw for 4,000 yards. So keep that in mind. Corey Curtis joins us now on the program. Corey, if that's the case, if he's plus 320 to throw for 4,000 yards, then you gave me some great odds yesterday on the football field, but I'll give you credit for putting money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I'll stand by it. Look, I'm counting on him playing at least 15, 16 games. But if he doesn't, obviously, you can't do it if you're not on the field. And that's the number one danger. But I feel like if he does, and I continue to point to, the type of offense that they're going to play and the success, Jake Browning, if you project him last year over 17 games, it was 4,700 yards. And that was Jake Browning. And, so it comes out to like 225 yards a game or something like that. 235. And he averaged over 220 last year, throwing to that receiving core with that offensive line, throwing that few passes. So I like I said, I feel like with this coaching staff, with this game plan, with these weapons, he stays on the field. He gets there.
Okay. After seeing the last 2 days of practice, do you still feel the same way given how the offense struggled against Seattle?
Absolutely. I mean, look, were there struggles? Absolutely. Do I expect there to be struggles? Absolutely. I mean, I don't. Rome isn't built in a day, and that doesn't mean the struggles aren't real. The struggles are certainly real, but I have said this repeatedly on this program, especially when it comes to the offensive line. Where are they in week 4? Where are they in week 8? Where are they in week 12? I expect the entire system to be run, better, more effectively later in the year than earlier in the year. I mean, you're taking Will Levis from a gunslinger to a surgeon. I mean, he's learning a new way to play the position. The expectation here isn't for him to take shots all game long. It's for him to complete passes. They want to complete 70% of their passes. Last year, he was under 60%. It's a different way of doing things.
Corey, what do you make of this? I looked this up today, wondering about how important year 2 is to Levis, as far as he's the guy, not the guy, and then the inevitable debate. Next year, we may have the exact same conversations 1 year from now. And I looked up Hall of Fame quarterbacks, because that's what we're hoping Levis becomes, right? Like, we're not hoping that Levis becomes another Ryan Tannehill. We want better than Tannehill, right?
Well, that's why he's here.
Okay. Tom Brady, his second year was 11-3, won the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, 13-3. Aaron Rodgers, second year as a starter because he didn't play. Aaron Rodgers, second year as a starter, 11-5. Joe Montana, 13-3. Dan Marino, 14-2. Patrick Mahomes, 12-4. So those are the first ballot guys.
Yeah.
Then the other guys. Favre was 8-5. Warner was 13-3. Ben Roethlisberger was 9-3. Eli Manning was 11-5. Even Matt Ryan was 9-5. So is there a level that if Levis is going to be this guy? Now, let me know. Drew Brees was 8-8, and Steve Young. Which they need to win this year. Like, isn't that kind of a thing where it's like, no, you'll know sooner rather than later?
I think it's an oversimplification. I mean, yes. Does he need to prove he can win games? Absolutely. But I think Peyton Manning also threw 100 interceptions his first 5 years or 6 years.
Well, he set a rookie record his first year, but Manning was pretty darn good that second year when the Titans went up there and beat him in the playoffs.
But then I think it was year 3 or 4, he had another monstrous interception season.
Well, there was one game that led to the epic Jim Mora playoffs rant because he threw like 3 picks in a game, and that was the end of old Jim Mora.
And you're also listing like you said, first ballot Hall of Famers.
Well,
I think
Eli
virtually-
Manning, I mean, come on now.
He's going to the Hall of Fame, and you know it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I want Levis to be better than Eli Manning.
Okay, and again, he played on a team with that went and won 2 Super Bowls, so he had good teams around him. You know, Patrick Mahomes took over a really good team. Look, Patrick Mahomes is really good. I mean, obviously, he takes them to the next level. We know Joe Montana had some decent players and some decent coaching along the way. All right, so you know, we'll see where Brian Callahan compares to Bill Walsh down the line. But to your point, he needs to prove that the moment's not too big for him. He needs to prove he can process. He needs to prove he can take what's in front of him and not, you know, risk it all the time. You know, he's got a lot to prove. And if he does those things, I think they believe they have enough pieces around him to win some games. You know, look, if they stay healthy and they go 4-13, it's kind of a disaster in my estimation. All right. But, you know, how many do you have to win? I don't know. I always told you I don't get as caught up in wins and losses as everybody else does. How does it look? What direction are you headed in? I'm more concerned about that this season. Like if they went 8-9 and Levis threw for 4,100 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 9 picks, I'd say the kid probably had a pretty good year.
How many yards did you just say? 4,200?
I said 41 or 42. I don't know.
Okay. I was going to say, there's a big difference between 42 and 32 as far as this is concerned. Corey Curtis with us from News 2. I think that the details about, well, you know, hey, it's more than just the quarterback. And, you know, Steve Young played with Joe Montana played with Jerry Rice and had Bill Walsh. Yep. And Tom Brady had Bill Belichick and an offensive line and a great defense. And Peyton Manning had Edgerrin James and Marvin Harrison. And I think that I think those details, while important, I ultimately think like it's not, like if you don't win, it doesn't matter. The wins and losses are the quarterback stat. And in this case, all these guys, except for Young, who went from the worst situation probably in the league in Tampa to the best situation in San Francisco and became a Hall of Famer. I think that outside of that, it's kind of proof that if you're not the guy, like you will succumb to bad coaching, or like the bad coaching will keep you from being the guy, or the bad teammates around you, bad offensive line, it will keep you from becoming the guy. How many of these quarterbacks out there, Corey, Zach Wilson, how many of these Zach Wilsons, Justin Fieldses, those guys would have made it with better teams and better coaching? And that's why, again, I'm just saying, if Levis is going to be the guy, he's got to win, because that's the one thing outside of Justin Herbert that all of these quarterbacks that have gotten contracts have done.
Well, and that's why I say it's not just about wins and losses. It's about what you see out there. I mean, look, I don't care what the Jets' record was. They could have been 15-1 with Zach Wilson at quarterback, and he's horrible.
You don't go 15-1 with a bad quarterback, and nobody would say Brock Purdy is the example.
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl.
Right, but that was a different era. Even Brian Billick went on the midday show at the Super Bowl and said you can't do that anymore. Brock Purdy is the poster child. He's going to get $56 million a year.
Yeah.
He is the poster child of having everything great around him. And we're not sitting here crapping on Brock Purdy.
No, but you know what? We just had a conversation about paying Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa. We just had a conversation debating how good are they really. We did talk about that. There is question about how good those guys are really. I mean, because they're not talked about in the same breath as Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. They're not. And 2 of those guys haven't won a Super Bowl. So, you know, I mean, are we going to knock Burrow and Allen? I mean, Allen hasn't been to the Super Bowl. So, you know, but he's still regarded as top 5, is he not?
But my point is, like you're saying, hey, the Jets could have been 15-1 and we would have known that Zach Wilson sucks. And I'm telling you, it doesn't work like that. There's no.
No, you're just saying it's, well, look, that 15-1 is an exaggeration, especially since they play 17 games.
Like who's a quarterback that sucks? See, Tua would be the example for me. But who's a quarterback who sucks, whose team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
That depends on who you ask, because some people would tell you Dak Prescott. Some people would tell you, I don't know who else is out there. What other Super Bowl contenders are there? Bengals, Bills, Ravens, Eagles. They're all pretty good. They're all pretty good.
And all their quarterbacks, we all think their quarterbacks are good.
Are pretty good. But we also have quarterbacks in there who still have some questions to answer. I think Tua still has some questions to answer. I still think the kid in Philadelphia still has some questions to answer.
Well, I think Trevor Lawrence is probably the example of a guy who.
Okay. Yeah, they're not a Super Bowl contender, and he's just mediocre.
Right.
So.
I guess my point is that it's like
if Levis is Lawrence, it's not good enough, and they got to get somebody else.
I mean, to me, Lawrence and Dak are kind of the line of demarcation where if you had to bet 5 years from now, or, Dak will be a little bit older, but if you had to bet 3 years from now, because we'll know 3 years from now if Levis was the guy or not. If you had to bet 3 years from now.
Yeah, but within 2 years, we'll know.
If you had to bet who will be better 3 years from now, Trevor Lawrence or Will Levis, who would you take?
Oh. That's tough. Because I kind of feel like I just know what Trevor Lawrence is.
See, I don't think this is again, I hope Levis is better than Lawrence, and I could see Levis has the talent maybe that he could be better than Lawrence, but this would not be hard for me to put my money down on Trevor Lawrence.
See, but I've just been disappointed with Trevor Lawrence. And I know everybody. I'm on the other side of this one. Trevor Lawrence is the first pick of the draft. He's been the anointed one since he was a junior in high school.
Right. He's not Joe Burrow. I know, but we're not comparing him to Joe Burrow right now.
But he has not lived up to the expectation. Okay. If he has a repeat of last year, what are we going to be saying about Trevor Lawrence?
We're going to still, a repeat of last year for Trevor Lawrence is still probably better than what Will Levis is going to be.
Okay, but was Will Levis the first pick of the draft?
No, but again, that doesn't matter. I've talked about this, right? I mean, San Francisco
I
doesn't get bonus points in the
but
Super Bowl because their quarterback's Mr. Irrelevant, and Kansas City used 2 first-round picks on their quarterback.
But my point is the same. If Trevor Lawrence is a repeat of last year and that's who he is, it's not good enough to get to the Super Bowl. So you're moving on.
Right. They're not, but I mean, I think Dak is not good enough to get to the Super Bowl, and Dallas is going to give him $60 million a year.
Yeah, and that's fine. I welcome that because with 2 minutes to go and the ball in his hands, you got a chance to win.
Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
I'm going to give you a couple. I really like 19 to score tomorrow night. The kid had a heck of a week and looks like he's really coming on for the team. And I really think that 88, David Martin Robinson, has a shot at making it as a fourth tight end on this team. I didn't think there was a prayer in the world this team would keep 4. I think he might be so promising that they'd be afraid to lose him and they might keep him.
I have had David Martin Robinson on my 53-man roster for all 2, and we will have a third later today. And he is on it. He has been on all 3 of my 53-man rosters. So
do you have 4 tight ends?
I do have 4 tight ends.
You have 4 tight ends? Yeah. I didn't think they would be 4, and now I'm changing my tune.
I also have 7 receivers.
So how many receivers?
7.
Who are the 6 and 7?
Kinsey and Jackson.
Jackson, you mean Jaquan, right?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got Jaquan in there, and then it's for me, it's Kinsey or Kieras. I would probably go with Kinsey because he can play all the receiver positions.
I mean, I don't think it's an accident that Kinsey kept getting reps with the first team this week.
Yeah, and Kinsey brings you some juice. I mean, he doesn't shut up. He's not afraid of anybody. Heck, he played quarterback last year when they asked him to. I think there's some value in that guy, unless you've just got a guy who's so good and you're just like, hey, we got to keep him or Mason. And then, see, the other thing about Mason is you're not terrified about losing him to someone else on the practice squad.
No. Corey Curtis News, too. He will be on the broadcast tomorrow, and if Will Levis doesn't throw for 4,000 yards this year, he will be $50 poorer at the end of the year. Corey, great stuff.
Do I get those 320 odds? I mean, what would I get paid on that? Like $160?
I don't do math on the air for a reason. That is
okay.
The number one reason why.
I
Corey,
don't
have a
need
good
the
call
odds.
tomorrow.
I don't need the odds. I'm good. I'm happy.
Exactly. It's a slam dunk. Corey, have a good call tomorrow.
Slam dunk. Thanks, Jared.
Yep. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So I did have a topic about Malik Willis. We're going to push that back because I do want to react to what Corey said. Not just about the winning and the losing, but the whole Trevor Lawrence, all of it. I got thoughts. We'll get to that next. And, of course, we'll get back to your phone, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Let me tell you about White Bison. That's right. I love Twice Daily, and I love their local coffee shop, White Bison. It's my local coffee shop with specialty coffee and so much more, and it should be your local specialty coffee shop as well. Explore their selection of premium coffee blends, refreshing iced drinks and food featuring fresh-made premium breakfast, lunch, and snack options. Download their app. Enjoy the White Bison Rewards program where you can place orders on the go anytime and get rewards and earn free coffee. Stop by White Bison and brighten your day with a sweet cinnamon beehive latte, an iced honey nut macchiato, or the vanilla rooibos tea latte. Find your perfect cup at White Bison where it's finely crafted for you every single day. That's White Bison. That's Twice Daily.
A lot about learning the system and getting comfortable with it. Over the span of your quarterback play, what type of learner are you in terms of which way best? Are you learn by doing, learn by taking notes and listening, learn by watching it done? What's your best way?
Definitely doing. I think not that I need to make a mistake to learn, but just getting reps is, I feel like at this position, the only way to truly develop yourself. But I do feel like I take coaching well, and I'm able to take coaching points out onto the field. I think I've been put in environments that have helped me with that, just with the amount of different offenses that I've had to learn and the amount of different coaches I've had. So, I've been able to do a good job with that, but I do think that I'm a learn by doing type of player.
That was Will Levis talking after practice the other day, and he's going to get a shot to do. But I was listening to Corey Curtis just bag on Trevor Lawrence. I am not a big Trevor Lawrence fan. But, Ian, I'm going to pose to you the same question I posed to Corey, which was, if you had to bet 3 years from now, who's going to be the better quarterback? And, again, this isn't about who could be better or who has the talent. Just, again, straight bet, futures prediction, Lawrence or Levis, where would you put your money?
We measuring on just over, I guess, stats, wins, I guess.
Whatever.
Yeah. Probably Lawrence.
I think most people would go with Lawrence. And then Corey started with but he was the number 1 pick in the draft. Right. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter how you got your quarterback. Now, if we were first take and we were having a discussion of, has Trevor Lawrence met expectations as the number 1 pick in the draft, that's a different discussion. But once you kick the football off, the Titans play the Bears week 1. And on one side of the field is the Messiah, the guy who the Chicago radio host says is going to the Hall of Fame, the guy who Colin Cowherd says is already a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, the number 1 pick in the draft, the guy who Gucci and Prada and Dolce & Gabbana and all the other purse companies, Chanel, they're probably lining up wanting him to endorse their purses. And on the other side of it is a guy who fell to the second round because he puts mayonnaise in his coffee and he sprays mayonnaise perfume and he takes pictures of himself without a shirt on. And when they kick that ball off week 1, it does not matter where Caleb Williams was drafted or where Will Levis was drafted. They do not give you bonus points because your quarterback was in the second round and their quarterback was first overall. And I hope people understand that. Because, again, when it comes to Levis, it's not about, can Levis be a solid quarterback? Is that what we're asking for? Because I talked about these year 2 records. And I'm talking about Brady and Mahomes and Manning and Montana and Rodgers and, again, the Hall of Fame guys. Well, Jared, that is not fair because Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback who ever lived and Aaron Rodgers is going to the Hall of Fame. And right, isn't that what we want? Isn't that what we want Will Levis to be? I go get into the Ryan Tannehill. Isn't that what we want him to be? Somebody texted in and said, well, what about Stafford and Goff year 2? I didn't look them up. You want to know why I didn't look up Stafford and Goff? Ian, you want to know why I didn't look up Stafford and Goff?
Did they switch teams?
Well, they're not going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, you don't think Stafford will?
No.
Okay.
They're not going to the Hall of Fame. That's why. I mean, is Jared Goff enough for what we want Will Levis to be? No, I think, again, it's more likely that is what Will Levis becomes, and then we all accept it. But that's different. Where we sit today, we want Levis to be a star. Well, you have to win. Well, but what those guys in those situations and those coaches and those doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That is chicken and the egg to me. Like, were the Rams great because Kurt Warner could sling it? Or was Kurt Warner great because he walked onto a team with Marshall Faulk at running back and Isaac Bruce, and they drafted Torrey Holt in the first round, and they had Azakim, and they had 2 great pass rushers on the other side, Kevin Carter and DeMarco Farr, and they Dre Bly at corner. Like, was it that? Or was it because Warner is the dude? I don't know. All I know is Kurt Warner's in the Hall of Fame. Ben Roethlisberger obviously went to a good team. I mean, he didn't lose a game as a rookie, and they were running the ball with the bus. But again, Ben Roethlisberger is a first ballot Hall of Famer and was a franchise quarterback. So when it comes to all this talk about, lowering the bar for Levis and saying, well, hold on, let's not hold him to the Hall of Fame quarterback standards, then it's like, well, then you're saying that you're okay with below Hall of Fame. And where we sit right now, I don't think that that's where Titan fans are. I think Titan fans want Will Levis to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. That the hope is that he can be our guy for the first time ever. And I loved McNair. But McNair, he was never considered the same as Favre, Manning, Brady, Gannon, those guys at the time. Now, we'll say this. When Steve McNair was the quarterback, as a Titan fan, and maybe some of this was because I was 13 years old, and maybe some of this was because Steve McNair was that dude, but as a Titan fan, I felt certain Steve McNair could go beat any quarterback on any given Sunday. Look, I know Brady beat him sometimes. He beat Brady. I know Gannon beat him in the AFC title game. First game the next season, McNair beat Gannon. Wasn't worried about Manning. Steve McNair in the playoffs, went to Indianapolis, beat him. Every quarterback in the league, I thought the Titans had a chance on Sunday with Steve McNair. I've told the story 1,000 times. This, honestly, Ian, may be the story I've told the second most to the right tackle story.
Okay.
But it was 2003, December of 2003, Titans playing the Colts the year that Manning and McNair split the MVP award. And the Titans fumbled a couple of kickoffs, and Manning scored, and so they were climbing, uphill the whole game based on those turnovers, and they got back in the game, and the defense got a stop with 2 minutes to go, and Indy's punting to the Titans, and the feeling that I had, the winner basically wins the division. The feeling I had in the stadium, and I could feel that everybody else had the same feeling. I don't know if Derek remembers this game or not because he played in so many, but I wonder if Derek on the sideline felt the same feeling I felt in my seats up in the 200 level. I knew McNair was going to bring him down and was going to win the game. I knew it. It wasn't like, okay, they're punting to us. Now we're going to see that. I knew McNair was going to do it. And Justin McCarron's fumbled the punt and Titans lost. And I know in my heart that if McCarron's didn't fumble that punt, they'd have won that game. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was a good quarterback for the Titans, and I think as time goes on, we'll probably remember Ryan Tannehill better than we think of him right now. But I never felt that way about Ryan Tannehill. And I know they went to Foxborough and beat Brady, and I know they went to Baltimore and beat Lamar, but I knew Tannehill needed help to beat the elite quarterbacks. I never felt that way about McNair. That's what I want out of Levis, is that it's, hey, sure, C.J. Stroud this week, okay, we got Will Levis. Aaron Rodgers week, okay, we got Will Levis. But this idea of, well, Lawrence was drafted number 1, so he should, that doesn't matter. When they kick the ball off, it doesn't matter where he was picked. It doesn't mean anything. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in, we will. Coming up next, Malik will get the start tomorrow over Mason Rudolph. Got some thoughts on that and more, and your phones. 615-737-1025 here on our program. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They've done every time. In fact, I'm talking to Hiller right now about some work we've got to do. I know it's a big job, and there's nobody I trust like I trust Hiller. Summer is over, and it's time to get ready for school to start. And so even though the kids are headed back to school, you can leave the homework to Hiller, just like I am leaving my homework to Hiller. This month, enjoy back-to-school savings with offers like a $99 drain cleaning, $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems, $500 off new tankless water heaters, and $1,000 off whole home generators. It's real simple. Go to happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Play the starters at all?
No, our starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, two really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters, should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
Good on Brian Callahan to tell the truth there, which, of course, as we learned yesterday, very, very important to me, telling the truth. But that line of thinking, and he's not the only coach in the league who thinks like that. That line of thinking of, no, we got a lot of work in on the joint practices, so we're not going to play any starters. So expect to see Malik tomorrow night. That is what is going to lead to the NFL televising joint practices. And the coaches are going to hate it. But this is how change in a business happens. Somebody doesn't really like something. It's technically not against the rules. They take advantage of it. And then all of a sudden they ruin it for everybody else. When Brian Callahan gets up there and says the starters aren't going to play, imagine being an ad seller at News 2. You're on the phone. Hey, would you like to buy ads for Saturday night's Titans game? Who's playing quarterback? Malik. No, thank you. No, I think we'll keep our budget in check. And look, maybe News 2 sold out all the ads. I don't know. But again, if I'm News 2, I'd be a little disappointed that, hey, the coach has already come out and said none of these guys are going to play. And I wouldn't be as much disappointed in the fact that the coach said it as much as I would be disappointed in the fact that that's what's happening. Because it's like, hey, guys, we don't pay for these games for free. Like, we're not airing these games for free. Like, we pay you a lot of money, and you're going to put Malik out there. And what's going to happen is the league is going to realize this. They already know now. And Sean McVay, he's the biggest culprit of this. And Sean McVay, he didn't play any starters. And what Sean McVay does is he goes out there and he says, hey, I've got 4 joint practices. I think 2 are against the Chargers, so they're right there in L.A., and then one's against the Cowboys, who they have training camp in Oxnard, California, and one's against the Texans, who are coming in for a preseason game. So on Wednesday of each week, they've got a joint practice. Don't know if you guys saw the video of the Cowboy player shoving the Rams assistant the other day, but that was at that joint practice. The NFL is eventually going to monetize that. And the coaches are going to be the ones that just bitch to the high heavens when this happens. But the only people they have is to blame themselves, because they're playing Malik tomorrow night. So just know, when you get into those meetings and the owners say, hey, we're going to start televising joint practices, and the coach goes, no, we want to be able to practice and not have it out there for everybody to see, and we want to, just know you did this to yourself by playing Malik in the preseason. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Let's go to Matt, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, yeah, I'd like to comment on the Jared Goff, Matt Stafford going to the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Matt Stafford can retire today, and he'll be in the Hall of Fame, second, maybe third ballot. If you take in comparison, Bernie Kosar's in the Hall of Fame. Where did the Browns go?
So, I mean, again, I don't know Bernie Kosar's record. That was before my time. I haven't researched it knowing that you were going to call in to talk about Bernie Kosar. But let me say this. In my opinion, Matthew Stafford's not a Hall of Famer. Thank you for your call, Matt. Matthew Stafford's not a Hall of Famer. One Super Bowl win to me, it's not one Super Bowl win in which he wasn't the MVP of the game is not enough for me to put you in the Hall of Fame. You know, Eli's going to get in the Hall of Fame, and I can support Eli in the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't say, you know, if they went around the table and they said, you know, we're voting for Eli, I don't know if I'd put my hand up or not. But I'm not putting – Eli was a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. I'm not putting Stafford in the Hall of Fame. Now, I do think that the Hall of Fame has gotten soft lately, so maybe Stafford gets in. Now, baseball, that's the sorriest one of all of them. They're putting Scott Rowland and Harold Baines and all these bozos into the Hall of Fame that are very solid players. And football's done some of that too. But I'm not putting Matt Ryan in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not putting Matt Stafford in the Hall of Fame. And if he were to retire today, I'm not putting Dak Prescott in the Hall of Fame. And I'm trying to think, Ian, are there any other controversial quarterbacks that I think Rivers is really a controversial
Pretty close.
case.
Yeah.
Like all the other ones, when it comes to, you know, the next wave of quarterbacks to get in there, Breeze, yes. Brady, yes. Ben, yes. Aaron Rodgers, yes. You know, I think Mahomes, if he retires today, yes. Lamar, if he retires today, is, I think, a very fascinating question.
Sure, yeah. But he'll probably make it, given he's still got a few more years.
I think Lamar's on the Hall of Fame path.
Yeah.
I mean, if Lamar gets another MVP,
Oh, yeah.
he's in the Hall of Fame.
His numbers are really good.
I don't even think Lamar has to win a Super Bowl. If Lamar gets to a Super Bowl,
If he keeps putting up the numbers and making it to the playoffs and winning 12, 13, 14 games in the regular season, he'll make it.
So I think, but he's on the path.
Did you say Matt Ryan?
I'm out on Matt Ryan.
Out. Okay.
I'm out on Ryan. I'm out on Stafford. I'm in on Rivers. If we win around the table, and I think we all know Eli's getting in, right?
I mean, 2 Super Bowls, right? And he's a
and
Manning.
MVPs.
And a Manning. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the Manning thing is, to me, if we went around the table and it was on Rivers, I would put Rivers in there. Even though, like, if Rivers gets left out, I'm not going to cry about it.
Yeah.
But if Stafford doesn't accomplish anything else in his career,
Crybaby Rivers.
and he has a 9-win season, 10-win season this year, the Rams make the playoffs, they win a game, they lose in the divisional round, and then he has another year, and then he's out. So, like, no league MVP for Stafford, no Super Bowl for Stafford, no anything else. I'm not putting him in. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So Joe Rexrode made a side comment today that I absolutely think is going to happen. And I absolutely think if it does, then we know our answer and we just don't want to admit it. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So this morning I went on Robbie and Rex Road, and as I often do, I'm just going to admit, Joe, I don't know if Joe listens to the show after he's done with Jared versus Joe. I know he goes to the text line and starts texting people back in the text line who disagree with him during Jared versus Joe. But I don't know if Joe listens. I try to listen, Joe and I argue, and then it's like, we'll come back with more on Robbie and Rex Road. It's not very good Robbie impersonation, but I tried. And so I listened. So I was listening to it today, and Joe said something that I found to be so depressingly fortuitous. You're like, wait a minute, what's that? What you mean? And I guess fortuitous might be the wrong word. Insightful, maybe. But I think Joe has seen into the future. Because all we talk about is Will Levis the guy? How do we know if he's the guy? Let's get him a coach. Got him a coach. Let's get him a receiver. Got him a receiver. Let's get him a tackle. Got him a tackle. Probably should have gotten him 2 tackles, but got him 1 tackle. Okay, fine. Get him a center. All right. Let's see if you're the guy to be the guy to finally lead this franchise out of the no man's land, out of the Bermuda Triangle of football into the new stadium. Let's see. This is the year to find out. And Joe said, are we going to find out?
My goal the whole time is try not to lose sight of what this season is about, and that is determining whether or not you got a franchise quarterback.
I'm going to do a fast forward to 1 year from now, Robbie. And this is what we're going to be saying.
Oh, boy.
Well, this year, this 2025 season, it's about knowing for sure if Will Levis is your franchise quarterback. He was pretty good last year. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad. He was pretty good. So this year, we're going to find out if he's a franchise. And, of course, if that's the case, then, they have to know next year, right? But I would take bets on that right now.
I laughed in the car as soon as he said that. And I texted Joe, and I said, this is the most right you've probably been about anything. Here we are. We spent all off season saying, we need this year to find out, is Levis the guy? We've got to find out. There's no way around. We got to know, is he the guy? And Joe says, 1 year from now, we'll be having the same conversations. There'll be joint practices next year. I guess Atlanta will come to town for joint practices, and they'll practice against the Falcons, and we'll be breaking it down and say, okay, this now we need to find out, is he the guy? Because the other realities are he either bombs like Desmond Ridder, and we know he's not the guy, or he has year 2 like Lamar and Mahomes where they're league MVP. But so then I started thinking, okay, how many guys by their second year in the league, or at least their second year as a starter, did you know if they were the guy or not? So I took what I thought are the top 10 or so quarterbacks in the NFL. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Herbert, Rodgers, Stroud, Stafford, Prescott, Hurts, Goff, Purdy. Somewhere, I don't know who's the top 10 between Goff or Purdy or Hurts or whatever. They're all kind of in the same category. How many of these guys did you know by year 2? Mahomes and Jackson had won MVPs. So you knew by then, by year 2, they were the guy. Burrow, Purdy, and Hurts, and this was year 3 for Hurts, but year 2 as a starter. Hurts, they had been to the Super Bowl. So you knew. Justin Herbert in year 2 went to the Pro Bowl and threw for 5,000 yards. Aaron Rodgers went to the Pro Bowl his second year as a starter, and Dak Prescott and C.J. Stroud made the Pro Bowl as rookies. By the way, Brock Purdy also went to the Super Bowl. So of that list, Mahomes, you knew, won MVP. Burrow, you knew, had carried the worst organization in the NFL to the Super Bowl. Allen made the playoffs. Jackson, MVP. Herbert, 5,000 yards in a Pro Bowl. Aaron Rodgers, Pro Bowl. Stroud, year 1, Pro Bowl. Then there was Stafford. Prescott, year 1, Pro Bowl. Hurts, Super Bowl. Goff, Pro Bowl. Purdy, Super Bowl. You see what I'm saying? The only ones where it's like, you didn't know for sure, Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford. Those are the only two. It is at least somewhat funny that those are the two guys they probably compare Will Levis to the most when it is a best case scenario. But regardless, the moral of the story is this. We probably should know by the end of this year if Will Levis is the guy or not. And if we don't know if Will Levis is the guy, chances are we probably do know. We just don't want to admit it. I've never been married before, so I've never been divorced. But how many people that have gotten divorced kind of knew? Like, you knew, but you tried. Didn't want to break up, whether it's for the kids or wanted to give it a try. Maybe you would be embarrassed if you did get divorced. So let's give it, let's just see. But that's where the Titans probably will be with Will Levis. Now, I would say that there are some exceptions. If Will Levis, knock on wood, breaks his leg in week 3, then it would be hard to tell what's what. But again, for the most part, I think that if you don't have the guy after the second year, history tells you that you probably know. Now, there are some cases. Carson Wentz, year 2, looked like Mahomes before Mahomes. There are chances where a guy turns into a star in year 2, and then that's it, and you don't really, Vince Young, we thought they had the guy. But again, those are more outliers than they are what's more likely. And I think what is very likely to happen is that if things don't go well, Will Levis and Brian Callahan will get passes this year. Well, they couldn't fix the roster in 1 year. It's all John Robinson and Mike Vrabel's fault. But again, it wasn't like Joe Burrow walked into a great situation in Cincinnati. They certainly didn't have an offensive line there, and he found a way to get them to the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning went to one of the worst organizations in the NFL. They were the worst team, and they traded away Marshall Faulk right after he got there, after his first year. And he still went 13-3. One of the worst organizations. The Colts, with the Ursays owning them, terrible. And they were terrible before Manning got there, and they've been terrible since Manning left. The difference? Manning. And while Will Levis wasn't drafted number 1 overall like Joe Burrow or like Peyton Manning or like, those kind of players, as we've said, it doesn't matter where you're drafted. They don't give you bonus points. In no game did New England get an extra credit on the scoreboard because they picked their quarterback 199th. Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, the benefit San Francisco gets is that, they're paying him $975,000 this year. That's it. But next year, they'll pay him $56 million. It'll be like they took him number 1 overall and he panned out. It'll be with Brock Purdy like he was what Trey Lance was supposed to be. And he'll be making the money that Trey Lance was supposed to get paid. So Joe's right. Again, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me, but I do feel like when it comes to the idea of whether or not Will Levis is going to be a franchise ace, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about can he be an average quarterback in the league. We're talking about a franchise ace. We'll probably know after this year. And if we don't know, we're probably making excuses because we don't want to admit the truth. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Here on the phones, here on Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. This is very odd. Very odd. We'll get to it later. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 of the game. How disappointed are you that when you get the offense in the 2-minute team period, it's one play and
Disappointed. Yeah, I mean that wasn't what I was hoping to get out of that period. I thought it just wasn't good execution all the way around, and we threw an interception to what would end a game, and so it's good coaching to teach off of. But very disappointed in that. I was hopeful to get better work out of that with the operation. instead of just throwing a pick on the first play, and that's it. So, yeah, disappointing.
That was Brian Callahan, and he was talking about, hey, that 2-minute drill, we threw one pass, and it got intercepted. And so I wish we, added more out of it, and a little disappointed. And I got to tell you, I think I'm a little disappointed in a decision that Brian Callahan has made. And again, this doesn't mean that I don't think Brian Callahan's a good coach. I don't know if Brian Callahan's a good coach. I hope he's a good coach. But I would say that I disagree with the coaching in not playing Will Levis tomorrow. He says he's not going to play the starters tomorrow night, and I'll take him at his word on that. It would be wild for him to reverse course. I think he should play the offensive starters, and the only reason I think he should play the offensive starters is because the guy who I think needs the reps is the quarterback. And if you put the quarterback out there in a preseason game, you put everybody out there in a preseason game. You do not put Will Levis out there to take snaps from a backup center. So if Levis plays, Cushenberry plays. If Levis plays, Latham plays. If Levis plays, and we know that he needs to get that connection going with Calvin Ridley, so you would play Calvin Ridley. Boyd and Hopkins are hurt anyways. So, maybe if you want to put Hassan Haskins back there, it wouldn't make that big of a difference. But again, if you play Levis, you play the starters. I think Levis needs the reps. I went back and looked it up today, and I can't tell you how hard it is to find preseason stats. Patrick Mahomes in the 2018 preseason, and remember, there were 4 preseason games back then. Patrick Mahomes threw 7 passes, 12 passes, and 24 passes in 3 preseason games. So that's something like 40-something passes. Mahomes did not play in the 4th. That was in the era of the 4 preseason games when nobody played in the 4th preseason game. 43 passes. You know how many passes Levis threw on Saturday night? 5. So he threw 5 against San Francisco, 0 against Seattle, because he's not going to play tomorrow. And I highly doubt that he will throw 38 passes against New Orleans. Now, I know Andy Reid's more of an old school coach, and Andy Reid also doesn't believe in joint practices. So it's not like Mahomes had those quote-unquote reps when he was a second-year guy getting ready to go out there. But I have to think if Andy Reid can do it and it works for Andy Reid, then don't you think you might want to think about it too? And not only that, I saw enough of Will Levis this week against Seattle to think that the first-team offense could use some more reps, even if it's just for 2 drives again against Seattle's backups. I understand that there's a risk that comes with playing in a preseason game and getting a quarterback hit, especially a quarterback who refuses to slide no matter how many different coaches tell him he needs to slide. I get it. But you can't play football scared. And I think Levis proved in these 2 practices against the Seahawks he needs the reps. And so I think it's a missed opportunity. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I do think it is a missed opportunity for Brian Callahan to give Levis a little headset, no shoulder pads, and go sit on the sideline and drink some Gatorade, when I'm thinking, hey, let's go out there this Saturday against the Seahawks and let's not do what you did the other day, which was play horribly. One texter says, Levis is healing up from lowering his shoulder from the last game. I don't think so. Another texter says, Stillman second-guessing the quarterback guru coach. I'm saying, hey, it worked for Andy Reid. And if it can work for Andy Reid, it can probably work for you too. And I'm not second-guessing the coach. I'm first-guessing the coach. I'm saying I think Levis can use the reps. I first-guessed the coach last year. And I'm like, hey, I think Tannehill needs to play in the preseason with this offensive line. Oh, no, Jared, he's a veteran. It'll be okay. And in the first game, Tannehill was so out of sync. Got hit a couple of times, and all of a sudden it was happy feet back there. And it's because he wasn't used to it because he didn't play in real games in the preseason where he could possibly get hit. He got joint practice work against Minnesota. But again, they can't hit you in the joint practices. One texter said, good thing Sam Darnold will be coming off his prove-it year with the Vikings and you can get your hero. Boy, I'll tell you, if Sam Darnold lights it up, I've been thinking about this. I think Sam Darnold's going to have a good year. I think Sam Darnold is going to have the 2019 Tannehill year. Now, I don't know if he ends up in the NFC title game, but I think it's kind of that earning his reputation back kind of season for Sam Darnold. By the way, did you see Diana Rossini's interview with Justin Jefferson, Ian?
No, I did not.
She was like asking him about Sam Darnold, and he was like, dude, I did not realize what catching a deep ball from Sam Darnold was like.
Yeah, I saw the quotes, how he just drop it in there like a pillow.
He's like, I mean, he just puts the ball. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I was listening to Charles Robinson. Now, Charles, kind of regurgitates what he hears from the going around. So this is all Viking spin. I get it. But I heard Charles on with Robbie and Joe this week. And Joe was like, they need to sign Tannehill because Sam Darnold stinks. And Charles is like, I'm telling you, like, they think their offense is really complicated and they think Sam's got it down pat. Now, I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to the Hall of Fame. But I think Sam Darnold, it's going to be like Jared Goff in Detroit. He's going to win his reputation back. And then, I don't know what Minnesota does at the end of the year. You drafted J.J. McCarthy 10th. I mean, he clearly is going to start year 2. But if Sam Darnold has a revival type year, I'm just saying. One texter says you're 100% right. Thank you, texter. Every unit except running backs on offense could use the reps. I mean, when did we just decide that a second-year quarterback doesn't need any more practice? Nah, he's good. He's good. He doesn't need any more practice. When did that become the thing? By the way, here's my favorite part about this. If he had come out and said, hey, our starters are going to play. Because Brian Callahan got up there after they won that meaningless game on Saturday, and he said, hey, winning matters around here, and we want a culture of winning. And so if he had gotten up there after practice and said, we're going to play the starters on offense on Saturday night just because we want them to get into the rhythm of every week suiting up and every week warming up and every week going out there and ready to play. And we got some things we want to work on. We got connections to work through. This is a work in progress. We're going to get the extra work in when we get the opportunity. I'd be saying yes. But the amount of you that if Callahan says they don't need the work, will say, they don't need the work, Jared. It's only the preseason. But if Callahan said they're going to play with it, yeah, I love the fact that my coach is playing them. You'll just say whatever the coach says is right. And I don't agree with that. One texter says, after these practices, Brian would have been more encouraged to get the starters the rest of this preseason. Would have been more encouraged to get some of you people, I don't know.
I mean, they did have 2 pretty hard practices this week. And
it was hot.
And it's a quick turnaround. I mean, you get 1 day of rest, and then you're supposed to play in the preseason game.
Well, the other guys are going to put Jaquan Jackson practiced 2 days in the heat, and he's going to play tomorrow night.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know what's not special about Jaquan Jackson that, oh my God, Will Levis, he can't handle it.
Well, I mean, you just don't want to risk it for the starters to get injured on a quick turnaround like that.
You're not there's no extra rest or no extra risk on that.
No hammies.
No, it's been the quarterback.
He always taken off.
Well, that's his fault. Again, if the quarterback's going to take those hits like he took Saturday night, he's better off taking them in the preseason so that we can yell at him about it. Because if he does it in a regular season game, he's going to end up in the hospital. And none of this is going to matter anyways. One texter said, did they say if the starter's not playing anymore in this preseason, or is there a chance next week they play? He said there's a chance they play next week. Landry and Simmons probably will not play in the preseason, according to the coach. And another texter says, Barry Trotz would make them play if he saw his team practice like that. I don't know what Barry Trotz would do or wouldn't do. But he certainly wouldn't let him go to Vegas if he saw how they practiced this week. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. So Brian Callahan is starting Malik Willis tomorrow night. And I wonder what the reasoning really is. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, and your phones, 615-737-1025. Indy racing fans, the Big Machine Indy show car will be on display today at Soar Adventure Tower in Franklin. Come check it out tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. And while you're there, register to win tickets to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix.
Know which Warriors are the quarterbacks?
Malik will start the game. Yeah, Malik will get his chance. He's rotated some with the twos in the last 2 days. He will start the game with that group. He's earned the right to have an opportunity to play with that group, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Malik Willis is starting tomorrow night, and I wouldn't read too much into that. I think Brian Callahan, who said, hey, this is going to be a competition between Malik Willis and Mason Rudolph, is throwing Malik Willis a bone and is saying, hey, hey, we see you, Malik. We're going to pretend like this is actually a backup quarterback controversy kind of thing, that you're battling it out for the backup spot, but you're really not. So Malik is going to start. And again, I do think Mason Rudolph's going to play. I think Malik will probably play the first half, and then Rudolph will probably play the second half.
I was going to say full halves.
I would assume so. I hate this, yank one guy in, put one guy out.
Quarter, switch out. Yeah, just do half and half, huh?
They might do that. They may go stupid, and they may do something like that. That's something the last coaching staff did, and I think the last coaching staff was stupid. So maybe. I don't know. But I think that this is, again, all as a, hey, Malik, we really believe in you, and we're going to show you we believe in you because you've earned the opportunity to be the starter in this second preseason game. So tomorrow, I don't know how Malik's going to play. Now, Malik, when he's had all these preseason opportunities over the last 2 years, has done absolutely nothing with them, whether it's pretty much playing the entire preseason in 2022, playing pretty much all the preseason last year, outside of splitting reps with Will Levis in the first game. And now he'll get this opportunity here. I think Malik will continue to show that he's a little bit better than last year, but not good enough to actually play in the NFL. And maybe he'll throw for over 100 yards this game. I don't know. Played an entire game last year, week 2 against Minnesota in the preseason, threw for 85 yards, which I just thought was horrendous. But the other thing not to read into when it comes to Malik is don't read into all of this stuff about Malik Willis not making the team. Malik Willis is going to make the Titans. And this is an example of why Malik's going to make the Titans. Because they can't put Malik with the ones at any point. He's not the starting quarterback. And when the starting offensive line goes out there, Will Levis is the one who's taking the snaps. Just like last year, even though I at one point in camp wanted to see Will Levis with the ones just to get an idea of what it would look like, to see how ready he is. And I really wanted to see him go up against the ones, which they would get to see in practice on scout team, but we wouldn't get to see it. If the ones were out there, Ryan Tannehill was taking the snaps because Ryan Tannehill was a starting quarterback. So what this is let's see how Malik plays with better players around him. Let's see how Malik plays against the Seattle backups because they know he's going to be on the football team. And here's why he's going to be on the team. In fact, Ian, I'm going to do this. Dun, 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 dun. I guarantee Malik Willis makes the Titans 53-man roster. Put it on the board.
Okay, I'll add it to the list.
And here's why I guarantee Malik will make the roster. I've said this 50 times, and it's like nobody hears it. Because I look, Robbie and Joe, the question is Malik going to make the team? I don't know. Maybe this linebacker will be better than Malik. And I hear other people say the same stuff. I had to text another radio host earlier this week, said, tell your partners they're out of their rockers. Malik is making the team. Malik's money is guaranteed. It's about $1 million. He was drafted in the 3rd round, so he's making, I think, like 1.2 or 1.4 or something like that each of the next 2 years. Again, not earth-shattering money. They're paying Mike Vrabel more money to not coach this team. They're paying John Robinson more money not to be the GM of this team. I get it. But they still also don't want to just throw away $1 million. The second thing is the quarterback rules allow Malik Willis to be inactive on game day. You get 48 active spots, but really it's 49 because Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson got hurt in an NFC title game, and the NFL said, we don't ever want to see that again, so you can have a third quarterback. So in the case of Malik, if they cut Malik, they have to pay him all of his money anyways. And how many guys are out there that they can pick up that'll be available that would be a better third quarterback than Malik? That Brian Callahan would say, oh, God, I got to have this guy. Maybe Brandon Allen, who is going to be the backup in San Francisco. That might be it. Who was the backup to Joe Burrow in Cincinnati? Jake Browning's not getting let go in Cincinnati. So there's really nobody else out there to go get who is so much better than Malik that they for sure can get that they would cut Malik. What's not going to happen, and I can promise you this because I see the roster at training camp, what's not going to happen is the idea of, oh, God, we just can't choose between David Martin Robinson or Thomas Odukoya for that last tight end spot, so let's keep both of them and cut Malik. That's not happening. Because every single one of these bottom of the roster guys, whether it's TK McClendon or Quentin Bohanna or Andrew Rupchich or any of these guys for the most part, they can either Otis Reese the fourth, they can either sneak them through to the practice squad or sneak somebody else the same caliber through to the practice squad. I'll give you an example. I think both Mason Kinsey and Kyle Phillips are better players than Malik Willis. But the Titans could cut both Kinsey and Phillips and probably sneak both to the practice squad, but absolutely would be able to sneak one of them to the practice squad. So it makes no sense in today's NFL not to have 3 QBs on the roster. It makes no sense to cut a guy who is a third-string caliber quarterback who you're already paying third-string money to, and it's all guaranteed. It makes no sense to cut him. So even if he sucks tomorrow night, like Malik's going to be on the team. But I also don't read anything into the idea that he's going to pass Mason Rudolph. Not that Mason Rudolph is good. I just know the Titans have their mind made up and Mason Rudolph's the backup quarterback. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. One texter says he just wants Malik to play well so he can trade him for a 5th-round pick. Trade him to who? Like, who's trading a pick for Malik? Is there a team out there? Is there a team in the NFL whose backup quarterback is not for sure better than Malik Willis? I'm just going off the top of my head. Mike White and Skylar Thompson in Miami are both better than Malik. Jacoby Brissett, who will probably be the starter in New England, but
I was going
Drake
to say,
May is,
maybe New England.
but May's the guy.
Yeah.
So, like, he's not better. I'll tell you right now, he's not better than Drake May.
No.
And so if Drake May's the backup, he's better than Drake May. And if Brissett's the backup, Brissett's better than Malik. I mean, it's not even close.
Minnesota, when they lost McCarthy, their backup is who? Nick Mullins now?
Nick Mullins or Malik? You're going to take Malik?
No, I don't think so. But, I mean, you might throw him in the mix.
Well, think about it this way. The Titans went out and got Josh Dobbs because Malik stunk, and Nick Mullins replaced Josh Dobbs last year. So,
yeah,
Malik is going to be the third string. And if 2 people get hurt, I mean, my thing with Malik is, if we're talking Minnesota, the discussion is Jaron Hall or Malik.
Maybe he could fit in, not as the backup, though. That's the thing. I don't know, third string in Baltimore might fit that kind of style.
Okay, but I'm talking about you're not going to trade
backup.
for a third. You're not going to trade for a third string.
Yeah. So, as far as backup goes, seems like a stretch.
So that's why Malik's going to be on the team. Trust me, if somebody offered a pick for Malik, they trade Malik. And then they'd go sign some other Scarbini, and he'd be the third string quarterback. But don't read anything into Malik getting the start. It doesn't mean that he's actually on Mason Rudolph's heels. And don't read anything about could Malik make the team? Malik is making the team. The money is guaranteed, and you're given an extra spot for the third quarterback on game day anyway. Malik will be on the team. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones. Plus, one thing that I don't think Brian Callahan necessarily told the truth about, but I also don't think Brian Callahan, well, I think I know where he's coming from. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025. Let's talk Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. There's nothing I love more than ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night than to do so with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. I love Fireball Whiskey so much, it just tastes so great. So if you are very excited, like I am, about the weekend that's ahead, be sure to celebrate with Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
Allen said yesterday he did not run hard through the two deep balls. I know Will kind of took the blame on the one throw. That's a bit concerning that a big ticket free agent who's supposed to be setting the tone is not running hard.
No, not really. It wasn't. I wouldn't credit it to not running hard. It just reminds me a little bit. When Jamar Chase came in as a rookie in Cincinnati, there was a bunch of hoopla about how he forgot how to catch a football, and we couldn't hit him deep, and we couldn't connect, and he can't catch. And I think the same thing happened to Jerry Rice too, if I'm not mistaken. But some of these training camp ups and downs get a little bit magnified. I'm not overly concerned about the process. I think we're in the right place. Sure, I would like to hit one or two of them, but those things come, and I don't really overreact to that at all. I think yesterday was hot. Those guys' legs were dead. They're dead today. We cut practice pretty significantly because of it. So I would just say we're just continuing on as usual.
Oh, coach. And we crushed him yesterday. Calvin Ridley says he wasn't running hard. Are you concerned by that? No, I don't think that was it. Really? Because he said he was running hard. And then the back end of it, it was hot. It was hot. So we spent all day yesterday complaining about that. I thought it was disingenuous, and I didn't like it. Joe made a good point this morning when I was on Robbie and Rex Road saying, what if Ridley knows the reason that he messed up, doesn't want to share it, and then just says, oh, yeah, I just didn't run hard. Just covering up the real truth there. And Brian Callahan knows what the real reason is. And so Brian Callahan says, oh, no, it wasn't that. Fair point. But I do think what he said in the middle of that, even though Derek, God bless him, slammed Brian Callahan's ass for comparing him to Jamar Chase and Jerry Rice, and he didn't run hard compared to Jamar having a hard time catching the ball. I do think I know what he's getting at. So again, eliminate the first part where he says, Ian will play the cut again, but eliminate the first part where Brian Callahan says that, no, Calvin Ridley did run hard, and the second part where he talks about how it was hot, and just listen to the comparison to Chase and what he said about Jerry Rice.
No, not really. It wasn't. I wouldn't credit it to not running hard. It just reminds me a little bit, when Jamar Chase came in as a rookie in Cincinnati, there was a bunch of hoopla about how he forgot how to catch a football, and we couldn't hit him deep, and we couldn't connect, and he can't catch. And I think the same thing happened to Jerry Rice too, if I'm not mistaken. But some of these training camp ups and downs get a little bit magnified. I'm not overly concerned about the process. I think we're in the right place. Sure, I would like to hit one or two of them, but those things come, and I don't really overreact to that at all. I think yesterday was hot. Those guys' legs were dead.
So what he's basically saying is, I remember, a lot of people are making a big deal about the fact that Levis and Ridley can't connect. And they can't. It's as simple as that. They cannot connect. And so Callahan saying, hey, a lot of people are making a big deal about it. And I remember when I was in Cincinnati and Jamar was having a hard time catching the ball, and everybody made a big deal about that. And then Jamar went out there and had 1,400 yards receiving, and we were in the Super Bowl. What he's saying is, just because something's not working in training camp does not mean that it won't work during the season. The problem with practice, and I kept saying this with my criticism of how the Titans performed in practice the last 2 days against Seattle, which was right now the snapshot in time with 3 weeks to go before the Chicago game. The snapshot is offensively, they're not very good. That does not mean that they can't improve. But he's the one that has to do the improving. He's the one that knows, okay, they need 18 more reps together, and they should probably, once it clicks, it'll click. And so we're just going to keep getting them reps, and we're just going to keep putting them out there, and we're just going to, that's what he's saying. It'll work itself out. It's like spring training in Major League Baseball. I had a buddy of mine that played in the big leagues for a little bit, and he goes, those games don't mean anything. I said, what'd you mean? He goes, they already know who's going to be on the roster out of spring training. The only thing that affects that is, this guy's shoulder is sore after 3 weeks of pitching, and so he's going to be on the injured list. And, this guy pulled a hammy, and so he's not going to be able to make it. But for the most part, they have about 27 guys. The roster's 26. They go to camp. They know who's going to make it. He told me, he said he had a spring with the Marlins in which he was the best pitcher on the staff. And it didn't matter. Got sent down to AAA, and then a couple of weeks later got called up to the big leagues. You got guys, he's hitting 124 in spring training. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The Braves acquired an outfielder this past year by the name of Jared Kelnick. He's a young guy who's a former first-round draft choice. He was out there. I think he was like 0 for 24 to start spring training. Opening day, left field, Jared Kelnick. The moral of the story is this is kind of the gritty work, how the sausage is made, the things that years ago people didn't care about, and now they care about it because people are addicted to the NFL. And these leagues look at all this stuff as an opportunity to sell more crap and make more money. So the league makes you open up training camp practices so we all go and you all care about what's going on in training camp. I mean, I went out of the country the week before training camp started because I knew that when I came back, it was time for football. Because I knew that you guys were going to think, when do you get in the car, knowing it's training camp, well, it's time for football. So while I do think that the whole, I wouldn't say he wasn't running hard. Well, he said he didn't run hard. Well, I thought that was a little disingenuous. And again, it was hot out there. I don't want to hear that. I think it'll be hot week 1. I know it'll be hot week 2 against the Jets. I do think that the Jamar Chase and, Jerry Rice struggled some, and it's his way of saying, look, this is practice. And we're going to make mistakes in practice, and the hope is that we clean up those mistakes and we take them to the game. Vrabel used to have a similar saying by saying that nothing in football is perfect. So at least that part, we ripped on the other. That part I get. Now, here's the other thing. The Ridley and Levis connection, it's not working out right now. It is concerning, and it needs to get better. Like, they are paying him $25 million to be the number 1 receiver of this team. And right now, those two, for whatever reason it is, cannot connect. And that is just not going to be acceptable come the season. Now, maybe they'll get it figured out. I don't know. I'm not saying they won't. I'm not dismissing the possibility that they will. But I am saying, hey, like right now, I don't know what it is, but these two are not on the same page. They're trying. They went out to Cabo together. They spent the offseason together. They were practicing at Vanderbilt together. I mean, these two guys, they put the work in. But for whatever reason, right now, it's just not working. One texter says, real fans still want to see the 2s and 3s play. But would you rather see the 1s? It's like I'm thinking about Monday's show. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going to happen Saturday night. Now, Chance Campbell could have 3 interceptions. And we could spend the whole day talking about Chance Campbell. I remember when I was in the 8th grade, the 2003 season, there was a running back, an undrafted free agent out of MTSU named DeJuan Hicks. And DeJuan Hicks absolutely tore it up in the preseason. And all the talk around town was, how could DeJuan Hicks not make this team? I think we've done a good job of not getting into those kind of discussions lately around here about taking these Bryce Oliver, David Martin, Robinson, those kind of players that might make the team, might not make the team. Bryce Oliver's probably not going to make the team. Very good player as far as practice is concerned. Very good third stringer. Probably won't make the team. But maybe something like that pops off and we have that discussion. But I am thinking about Monday's show and how it's a Titans Monday. And I'm like, if it's Malik and the Scarbinis out there, is there really anything to talk about? I mean, we used to never talk about what happened in the 4th preseason game when every team across the league was like, we're not playing our starters in the 4th preseason game no matter what. One texter says, Jared, you said if a quarterback isn't good by year 2, then it's not going to happen. And you're also saying Sam Darnold will revive his career. Which one is it? Ian, what is the caliber of quarterbacks that I talked about when I'm talking about making it in year 2 of their career?
Hall of Famers for the most part.
Right. I'm saying Sam Darnold's going to be like Tannehill and Jared Goff, which is he showed you a little something in Carolina at the end there, And for some reason, the league thought he sucked, and he's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to play well, and people are going to be like, wow, this guy doesn't suck. The same way they were with Tannehill, the same way they were with Jared Goff. I am not saying that Sam Darnold is going to make the Hall of Fame. That ship has sailed. Chad Withrow joins us next from Outkick here on the program. His thoughts after the underwhelming performance by Will Levis in the offense against the Seahawks in joint practices. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, and we'll give something away next hour. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 5 o'clock, which means Chad Withrow joins us, presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. And before we get to Chad, Ian, let's give something away.
Let's do it.
Caller number 5, 615-737-1025 won a pair of tickets to see Glass Animals at Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday, August 27th. Good luck there. Chad Withrow now does join us on the program. Joint practices, Chad, with the Seattle Seahawks, and the offense, for the most part, did nothing. I mean, I hate to say it, but did nothing. As far as it was concerned, they did not score touchdowns in any of the scrimmage periods, including the 3 on Wednesday, in which 2 3-and-outs. Then the drive stalled. They ended up getting 2 first downs thanks to Seattle penalties. Then in the 2-minute drill, Will Levis 0 of 1 with an interception on the first throw. It was ugly. How big of a deal is that to you?
I don't think just individual practices and these joint practices is that big of a deal. But I do think you hit on something. I don't know if I think you talked about this in your show also, but I know you posted it on X. But let's look at how the rest of the league views Will Levis versus people in Nashville. And it got me thinking, I can't think of a ton of examples where just the local people or the local fan base, boy, they had it right, and everyone else in America had it wrong on a player. It's usually the rest of America that gets it right and the fan base that has it wrong, if they're completely different from everyone else. And I look at Will Levis, and that is the sense I get. National experts, writers we have on, we'll have people on our show that cover different teams, and no one thinks a thing of Will Levis. I mean, they don't even think about him. It's not that they're thinking about him like he's terrible. They just don't think about him at all. And I'm starting to wonder if everyone else is right and Titans fans and Titans media may be wrong on Will Levis. And he goes out and has performances like that. And, boy, it doesn't really help his case for everyone in locally in Nashville being right about him.
What would you say to the people that say it's only practice and they have 3 weeks until Chicago?
It's the same people that said, they'll fix it. They'll figure it out, right? What was it Caroline put when you had concerns about right tackle?
It'll be fine, season.
You'll be fine. Yeah, there it is. You'll be fine. Guys, 3 weeks away. It's fine. Everything's going to be judged when he plays against Chicago. And, yeah, of course. I mean, his regular season performance is what matters, and that's what we're going to judge him on. I just don't think we're getting a ton of evidence to get people excited about Will Levis. I mean, maybe he completely flips the switch and he's awesome, and this offense is humming under Brian Callahan once we get to Chicago in week 1, but we're not really seeing signs of that so far. I don't know if it's concerning as much as it is just a situation where I'm starting to suspect more and more that people that haven't seen the Titans or don't know as much about them may be more onto something than the fans of the Titans. And look, I get it. They're fans for a reason. They're always going to back their team and they're going to believe the best in their team. But I see the upside of Will Levis. I don't think he's given Titans fans or any media across the country many reasons to really believe that he's going to have some sort of breakout campaign in 2024.
I looked it up today. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick. I looked it up today because where we sit with Levis right now, we don't know if he's going to be the guy, not the guy. I mean, I personally want him to be a franchise quarterback, a Hall of Fame level quarterback. And I said, okay, year 2 for these guys, what do they end up doing? Or at least their second year as are 13-3. Rodgers 11-5. Montana 13-3. Marino 14-2. Mahomes 12-4. Other than Steve Young's 2-14 in Tampa and Drew Brees 8-8 with the Chargers, most of these guys are winning quarterbacks. Even Favre 8-5 made the Pro Bowl his second year. Warner 13-3. Roethlisberger 9-3. Eli 11-5. It seems to me like if Levis is going to be a transcendent quarterback, he needs to be that pretty quickly, Chad.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just a win-loss record. You're going to those quarterbacks win-loss record. Now, I think it's a breakout year. That's my expectation. If Will Levis is going to be the quarterback long-term for the Titans, then he needs to have a breakout season. He needs to play. He needs to stay healthy. And I don't know what the final win total is. It'd be nice to win more than they lose. 9-8 or better would be great. But I'm not necessarily putting a playoff appearance or a certain team win-loss total on it as much as he needs to show vast improvement. Because you're right, the great quarterbacks in NFL history, there's a sizable jump from year one to year two. We talk about it so much in college, freshman year to the second year. Your second year starting in a system, for anyone, not just quarterback, but any position, that's where you're going to see the big jump, year two. We've seen it with coaches, right? I think most great coaches in college football, Nick Saban had a giant leap in 2008 in year two with Alabama. Josh Heupel just had a big leap in year two from 2021 to 2022. Usually, if you're going to be a great coach at a program for a long time, you have a big leap from year one to year two. Same goes for quarterback. And the Titans have done a lot around him to help him. Still don't have a right side of the offensive line, which could be a problem. But skill position-wise, other than the loss of Derrick Henry, I think they've done a number of things to help Will Levis have more reliable weapons around him where we're going to know about him after year two. And that's my hope throughout. Regardless of what happens, good or bad, I want to know the future of Will Levis and know what the Titans see in Will Levis and know that he's the quarterback of the future. Or not. One or the other. I just don't want to have any uncertainty after this 2024 season.
Chad Withrow with us from Outkick. One thing that really bothers me is that if the Titans don't do well at practice, or say, I don't know, the quarterback doesn't do well at practice in a joint practice against another team, it's, who cares? It's practice. Then Jaquan Jackson, the 6th-round rookie out of Tulane, goes and takes one to the house, and it's like, he lit it up, Jared. It can't be, well, if they do poorly, it doesn't count. But if they do well, it does count. That is starting to drive me crazy. So which one is it?
It's honestly, all of this is such a byproduct of a media explosion around the NFL.
Yeah.
You've got every type of podcast and website and everyone at the Titans training camp. You got so many. When I started in 2004 going to Titans training camp, you saw about the same 15 people, every day that covered the Titans. I have not been to Titans practice this year, but I'm willing to bet, having gone last year, there are a lot of people out at Titans training camp. And there's a lot of different coverage you can get and a lot of different forms of coverage online, newspaper, radio, television, podcasts. You have so many different avenues of coverage of the Titans that it makes every fan hypersensitive to everything going on. Because if you've got a podcast covering the Tennessee Titans, then it is in your best interest to make practice important and to treat practice like it is the most important thing ever. Or to overly downplay something if you want your fan base to continue to be excited. So I just think it's a preponderance of media, right? It's all these media outlets needing something to talk about and wanting to make it really important or really not important based on what they want to sell to their audience. And I don't think it's anything more than that. Practice is exactly what it was in 2004, and it's exactly what it was in 1980.
Honestly, it's probably less now than it was in 2004 because they took it more seriously back in 2004.
Yeah, they practiced, right? Star player practice. Now, if you've had an injury problem, you don't practice.
Jamal Adams, you don't need to come out here.
Yeah, no need. We want to rest those hammies. We want to make sure we get you to the starting line and then see what happens. Well, you'll take your first contact in week number 1. I mean, back in the day, the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers used to be drunk all off season and have to sober up during training camp. And they practiced every day in 2 or 3 days because that was their chance to get in shape. Boy, practice mattered then. There wasn't the internet back then in the 1970s, but I'd really like to know if there was, what those practice reports would look like for those Oakland Raiders teams led by Kenny Stabler. That would have been fun to follow. Practice doesn't matter all that much, and I think everybody kind of overvalues it. But this is what we want in the NFL. The NFL wants to carry year-round, and fans carry year-round, so good for them. I mean, that's exactly what they wanted.
Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. I don't know why we gave that away because the hot seat is next. We will discuss what we expect to see Saturday night with the starters out and more here on Stillman and Company. Chat is presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Let's talk FanDuel Sportsbook. You know I love FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. Football is approaching, and it's time to get in on the action this season. Tons of different player props are out there right now, like passing yards, touchdowns, rushing, receiving totals, and more. Also, great team markets like to make the playoffs, to win the division, Super Bowl matchups, and more. And you can parlay together different picks for even bigger payouts. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. There's no better place to get ready for the football season than on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, my official sportsbook app, and an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to sign up today. 21 and over in President, Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
They try to define you, but you are the ingredient to your own success. Luscious, eggy, smell like greatness. Will Levis, #8, Parfum de Mayonnaise.
Okay, Will Levis's Eau de Mayonnaise right there, his new perfume with Hellman's Mayonnaise. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick, presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Chad, we start there on the hot seat. Your reaction to Will Levis's mayonnaise perfume?
Well, I thought it was a hilarious ad campaign. I'll start there. I thought it was very funny, and I immediately thought, oh, this is what Will Levis was asking Peyton Manning about when he had a chance to ask him a question about how to market himself.
Yeah.
And how to get into advertising, right? And then what was Peyton Manning's response? Worry about winning football games first.
Yeah, kind of rolled his eyes and said, I did my fair share of commercials, but I'd worry about football.
I think it's hilarious. I think it's well done with the whole mayonnaise tie-in. I think it's smart marketing by Hellman's and Will Levis. I wish it would have happened after a great season this year. I mean, just, being a little bit selfish, I wish that he would have had a better season and that he would have done more his rookie year and then combined that to year two and done a little bit more. I can't really think of a lot of second-round NFL draft picks at quarterback that have a national ad spot like that after a mediocre first season and haven't done anything their second season. I know the dude in New York, Tommy DeVito, got a lot of ad exposure with his run, but it wasn't like people were thinking Tommy DeVito is a future star in the NFL. It was more of a joke than anything. So I don't know of a lot of guys that have that.
Unfortunately, though, I think that this might be more of a joke than it is.
Well, no, it's a joke, but Hellman's is a big company.
Sure.
I'm saying this is not like your local car dealership that he's doing an ad for. Like, this is a national campaign that they're doing with Will Levis. So I say all that to say good for Will Levis's agent and manager to make this happen. That's good news for them.
Number 2, Calvin Ridley claims he did not run hard on a deep pass that was incomplete. Brian Callahan said Ridley didn't not run hard. What do we make of that?
Well, I can't stomach a lack of effort. I can't do it. I don't stomach a lack of effort with the softball teams that I coach that are 9U. I don't understand how fans pardon any lack of effort. And what Brian Callahan is saying is that he's a liar, then, because he said it right there and said it. And I heard what you said about Joe Rexrode's thought that, well, maybe they really know what the reason was, but he's just saying it's a lack of effort. And okay, so now we're going to give people the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're lying. So now it's okay that they lied about it. And why would the first lie be that I didn't run hard and I need to run harder? I don't like any of it. I don't like Calvin Ridley. First off, I don't like Calvin Ridley doing it if we are to believe him that he's not running hard enough to go get the football. Second, I don't like that he's copping to not trying hard enough and saying he needs to try harder. And third, I don't like Brian Callahan coming out and comparing him to Jerry Rice when he's talking about it. You know what Jerry Rice never said to anyone in the media because it never happened? I just didn't run hard enough on it. Well, let's go find a clip of Jerry Rice saying I didn't run hard enough. Did he ever do that in his career? No.
I didn't bring this up because I think it is absurd and because Rich Gannon has told me that it is absurd. But I think it was Jerry Rice and Tim Brown that accused Bill Callahan of throwing the Super Bowl when they were with the Raiders. And it's like, and now Brian Callahan's quoting Jerry Rice. I'm like, wow, that's kind of wild, right?
That is pretty wild. I don't remember that. But again, if you're someone who is accusing your coach of throwing a Super Bowl because you're so mad about losing the Super Bowl, and if you're Jerry Rice, remember he used to practice with bricks? Like he'd put gloves on and he'd catch bricks in the offseason and he'd run those hills in San Francisco. That dude's not pulling up lame on a deep ball or not running hard to the football. And he's certainly not talking to the media, almost joking about not giving it his all in practice. So I like Calvin Ridley. I think he's a heck of a player. I think it's a heck of a signing for the Titans. I don't like any of this, and I don't like the head coach's defense of it either.
Okay, number 3. Brian Callahan says Malik Willis will start tomorrow night. He says Malik has earned it. None of the starters are going to play. How do you feel about watching another preseason game quarterbacked by Malik Willis?
I love that Malik Willis has earned it. He's earned the right to be a tackling dummy when we don't want to get anybody else hurt. He has earned this right to start in a game that we have professed as a team we don't think enough of to play a single starter. And nor will the Seattle Seahawks. We have a gentleman's agreement that no one that matters will play in this game. And Malik Willis has earned the right to start in that game against the Seattle Seahawks backups. I don't care at all. I don't care if Malik Willis is on this team or if he isn't, and I do not care at all to watch any of this game or him starting. He is a sacrificial lamb tackling dummy in a game against backups, and I cackle at the coach saying that he's earned it to go start in this game. Well, I don't even know what that means. It sounds like a negative.
I mean, honestly, no disrespect to Malik. I'm kind of tired of watching him play in the preseason. Like, I know what Malik is. I've watched him overthrow guys in the preseason now for 3 years.
Would you rather see him play in the regular season? Because
No.
Good.
I booed at Nissan Stadium last year when Vrabel kept putting him back in the game. Number 4, Neyland Stadium has naming rights that will not encroach on the name of Neyland Stadium. Pilot has purchased the rights for the next 20 years to be the Pilot Neyland Stadium. Pilot everywhere, Pilot on the front end, Pilot on the back end, but it will still be referred to as Neyland Stadium. Did Tennessee have to do it the way they're saying they had to?
Well, they didn't have to do it, but I mean, this is brilliant. This is brilliant on all sides, okay? And here's why. The one thing that Tennessee fans want protected is the name Neyland Stadium, right? Shield Watkins Field, whatever. They want it to be Neyland Stadium. They do not want it to be Kroger Field like Kentucky, and that's what Tennessee fans like to make fun of. Kentucky.
I was there when that happened.
Kroger Field.
Like, I was there when they started, and I was like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, that Commonwealth Stadium, and I know Kentucky's not the proudest football program, but Commonwealth Stadium is like a respectable name. And then to call it Kroger Field, really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Commonwealth Stadium had a cool ring to it for sure. And look, I don't love that it's Food City Center and not Thompson Bowling Arena. I still refer to it as Thompson Bowling Arena, but Thompson Bowling Arena is no Neyland Stadium when it comes to venues. So protecting the name Neyland Stadium was smart. And to call this a preservation partnership, I mean, it's a lot of words, but it is genius. Pilot was always going to be a big part of this sponsorship-wise, no matter what. I knew right away they were going to be the corporate sponsorship on the field. They were going to have their logo all over it. I'm fine with all this. I'm a traditionalist. I don't love it, but this is where it's all headed. And if it's going to head this way anyways, get out in front of it and be the first team to strategically and in a smart way make it a preservation partnership instead of an outright naming rights deal and get all the money from it. I think Danny White, Jared, is already one of the 2 or 3 best athletic directors in Tennessee history.
It's a hot take.
I really do. He's better than Mike Hamilton. He's up there with Doug Dickey already. He is a Tennessee football playoff appearance away from arguably being the greatest athletic director in Tennessee history. The man is brilliant. I have never seen Tennessee athletics humming at this level from a business perspective, from a play perspective, the way they work with the collective also. I mean, it is check mark for Danny White. And I think this is another example. I would have been truly mad, and I would have been on fire today had they changed the name of the stadium to Pilot Field or anything like that. Neyland Stadium stays, so Tennessee fans are happy.
Okay, number 5. What do we make of Deion Sanders' outburst towards local reporters?
I think the man is insecure, and I don't quite understand why. You know,
I think he's a narcissist.
Well, you could chalk it up also to, you know, all the great athletes have this in them where they've got a chip on their shoulder at all times. Michael Jordan being first and foremost on everyone's mind when it comes to that. So they're going to create, you know, problems either way. I really think Deion Sanders, though, part of me thinks he's actually worried and nervous that everyone's right that's criticizing him and his program. And he's kind of lashing out because deep down, he may know that they're actually right. The start of the season last year was phenomenal for him. The rest of the season went exactly as we expected, and the final record was about what we expected. So they need to be a lot better this year. I'm not sure they're going to be a lot better this year, and maybe deep down, Deion Sanders knows it.
I don't think Deion can afford another 4-win season.
No, they need to improve. But bowl game is the goal. I don't think they're getting to a bowl game with that schedule.
Yeah, but the Big 12 sucks.
Well, here's the thing. So
I call it ACC West.
I looked at just futures on point spreads for all their games. I think there's like 2 games that they're clearly favored to win. One of those is the opener against North Dakota State, but they're only a 7.5 or 8-point favorite over North Dakota State. The other one is Cincinnati. Outside of that, they are in about half of their other games favored to lose big. And then the other ones are coin tosses, are within like 3 or 4 points. So there's a number of games that are kind of coin flips on their schedule, but there's also not a lot of just outright wins. You know, it's not, you don't look at it and say win, 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 win. Oh, there's 3 wins right there. Now they need 3 more. There's really only 1 or 2. And I'm here to tell you, North Dakota State is no slam dunk for Colorado in week 1.
Number 6. What do we make of Bo Nix lighting it up in his preseason debut and being elevated to Broncos starter in practice? Are we ready to bring back our Bo Nix criticism?
I think everybody's jumping the gun a bit here on Bo Nix. He did look good. I think they won like 13-12 in the game, but while he was in the game, the offense was humming. And I trust Sean Payton as a guy who can develop quarterbacks, but I am not ready to anoint Bo Nix just yet. You knew when they drafted him, I mean, he was going to be the quarterback sooner rather than later. To get the gig this quick, it may be a little bit surprising, but I'm not so fast to say that Bo Nix is going to be great.
What was your final impression of the Olympics?
I thought they were very good. You know, I thought, you know, it was they had compelling stories throughout. The basketball part of it got really intense late with Team USA against Serbia and then against France in the gold medal game. So to me, the Summer Olympics are all about swimming and gymnastics. If swimming and gymnastics are compelling, and gymnastics is way more compelling than swimming this year, and you get good men's basketball throughout and a gold medal, I think it's a successful Olympics. Paris, as a very old European city, anytime the Olympics are in Europe, I like it better. The time change is better. You can follow it live during the middle of the afternoon if you want, or wait and watch that, how they prepackage it in prime time and get it all set for you. I like the time change difference with it. I like European Olympics. Yeah, I'd give it an A+ for this Olympics. I think LA will be better. Anytime America hosts, I think it goes even better. So I'm looking forward to 4 years from now.
Last one. What did the gold medal game do for Steph Curry's basketball legacy?
It helped it immensely. I think Kevin Durant in international play too, when we go back and look at his career, is going to be a huge part of what we talk about Kevin Durant and the positive. I thought Steph Curry's performance was legendary. Now, that last 3 he hit, you know, I've heard people go over the top and say it's like the biggest shot in basketball history. Well, they were up, 6? They went up 9, I think, with that 3. It was a great shot, and it was just a heat check, you know, fire it towards the basket, and he nailed it. But Team USA was probably going to win at that point regardless. But no, I mean, I think this adds the legend of Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter in NBA history, and I think it really helped these Olympics, really helped LeBron James, Kevin Durant, all those other stars, in that everyone seemingly swallowed their ego and got out of the way and gave Steph Curry the hot hand the ball in that game. So I think it helped everyone.
Chad Withrow, presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. By the way, my thing with Steph Curry is that put him into the legends category, and that now I think, like, for my lifetime, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Steph Curry. Like, Durant's not in that group. Barkley's not in that group. Isaiah's not in that group. They're all Hall of Famers. They're all great players, but they're not in that group.
I think he was already there, honestly. And I put him there because he really did revolutionize the game in a lot of ways.
Sure.
He made it fun to have the green light at all times when you cross half court and shoot threes from distances that we're not accustomed to watching people shoot threes from. So he changed the game from that respect. So I would have already put him in that group. This just adds to it.
Chad Withrow, as always, joining us on a Friday. Chad, great stuff. Appreciate you. We will talk next week.
Always a good time. We'll talk to you next week, and have a great weekend.
Yep, Chad Withrow here on the program, presented by A Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. Okay, we have made it a Friday tradition. Coming up next, our Seattle preseason game, post joint practice, Titans 53-man roster. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
This second preseason game, Coach, this second preseason game, a chance for you to get a look at guys that may not be starters, but certainly guys you're going to be counting on. How much are you looking forward to see how they perform there?
Very much so. These preseason, I love the preseason games personally because you get a chance to really look at the depth of your team and see what kind of guys you have playing. And again, they're playing against other guys fighting for the same things, and so you get pretty good competition out there with those groups. And I love watching it. It's great evaluation for us to see what we have in a real live action, because you don't always know what you have out here in the practice field until you see guys go play football for real. And so I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be some guys competing for spots, and our team plays really hard. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
play the starters at all?
No, our starters won't play. There may be a couple of guys maybe that play, but our starters will not play. Obviously, 2 really hard, physical, heavy days of work for them. No reason to put them in the game. We got our controlled work here against their ones. Really, that's the benefit of the joint practices is the amount you get against these guys. It's controlled. But no, our starters, should not expect to see many starters, if any at all.
Okay. So the coach is like, hey, I love the preseason. Fans do not. But it is now a weekly tradition on this program. The 53-man roster, the Stillman and Company pre-Seattle 53-man roster. We have made some changes after the San Francisco game and the joint practices. So, Ian, without further ado, we'll go right to the list in case you have a thought.
No. Let's get to it.
All right. Quarterback, 3. Levis, Rudolph, Willis. That hasn't changed. And again, Malik will start tomorrow. They are saying there is a battle for the backup quarterback spot. There is not. Mason Rudolph is the backup. He'll probably play some tomorrow, but they're throwing Malik a bone, and Malik is not going to be cut. He is going to make this team. His money is guaranteed. You get the 3rd quarterback rule. It will be Malik Willis. So that I feel certain in. Levis, Rudolph, and Willis. And I have, in fact, guaranteed today that Malik Willis is going to make the Titans. So if you hear anybody say, well, is Malik going to make? No. Because, again, we got to 53, and it wasn't that hard. Okay, running back, 3. Now, I added a running back. Last week, I only had 2, Spears and Pollard. I've added a 3rd, Spears, Pollard, and Haskins. And I've only done that because Brian Callahan said they're going to carry 3. I don't think they need to. Again, this is just the 53-man roster that gets you into kind of the start of the season. It's not even the first game. But I think you can get Haskins and Chestnut to the practice squad. It would allow me to keep somebody better who might not get to the practice squad. And if Haskins gets claimed by somebody else, then Chestnut goes to the practice squad. And if I want to, I can elevate him on game day. But they're going to carry 3. I think they'll go with Haskins, who offers them more special teams versatility than Chestnut. So Spears, Pollard, Haskins, 3 running backs right there. Wide receiver, 7. It's the same 7 we had last week. Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI, Kinsey, and Jaquan Jackson. Jaquan Jackson is going to make the football team. Had a great punt return last week. He's probably going to be the punt returner. Had a great 2 days of practice against the Seattle Seahawks, and it would not surprise me if we see Jaquan Jackson end up making some big plays tomorrow night. And that's why I asked Brian Callahan, I said, are you thinking about moving him up with the 1s? Because if he's going to make the team, might as well see him with the 1s. Mason Kinsey makes the team because of how much he has been playing with the 1s and how much he's been producing in practice with the 1s. And so I think the Titans are going to keep 7 receivers at least through that first jolt. Maybe they think they can get Kinsey to the practice squad, but the first 6, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI, and Jaquan Jackson, they're all making the team. Kinsey is iffy, but he makes it for me. Tight end, 4, Wiley, Okonkwo, Vanette, and David Martin Robinson. And David Martin Robinson was very good in these 2 practices. We've had him on the 53-man roster the whole time. David Martin Robinson was very good in these 2 practices, which is very important as far as him making the team. Because if he were to be released and they try to get him through to the practice squad, there is a chance that Seattle could claim him. They've seen him up close and personal. They're like, whoa, this might be a guy we want. So I think they keep David Martin Robinson because they probably don't think they can get him through to the practice squad. 4 tight ends, Wiley, Okonkwo, Vanette, and Martin Robinson. Offensive line. Last week on the offensive line, we had 9. This week we have 8. Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Radens, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
Rupchich, Christian, and Daniel Brunskill. Last week, we had Daniel Brunskill off the team. This week, we've got Daniel Brunskill on the team because not only is he the backup center, but I also think if they were to go into a game, Brunskill could serve as a backup at every position type player. Jaron Christian is the swing tackle. Andrew Rupchich is a backup guard. and I think he'll make the team. But Brunskill kind of gives them the versatility to play every position. So even though his salary's a little bloated for me, for a backup, he ends up making the team. I don't feel the need to keep a 9th offensive lineman.
Who did you swap out?
I took off Leroy Watson and Corey Levin.
Okay.
They're both out. So we had 9. Now we have 8. Brunskill gets in there. And I feel pretty certain he'll end up making the team. Defensive line, 5. Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day, Coburn, and Bohanna. Now, I thought about McClendon over Bohanna because that's a lot of fat guys between Sweat, Coburn, and Bohanna. But I just think Bohanna's probably the 5th best guy. It would not surprise me. The Titans ended up IRing Marlon Davidson today and signing some guy.
Abdullah Anderson.
Signing him to the team. It would not surprise me to see the Titans carry 4 defensive linemen on the active roster and then again try to use the practice squad to sneak somebody up there on game day. Outside linebacker, 4. Now, Arden Key is suspended, so he doesn't count against the traditional 53. Landry, Weaver, Shane Ray, and Jalen Harrell. We've removed Thomas Rush. He just hadn't done enough. So I took the extra spot because I added a running back.
Harrell will make it.
I think Harrell will make it. Coach loves him. So 4 at outside linebacker. Inside linebacker, 5. Last week we had 4. This week we have 5. Murray, Gibbons, Campbell, Otis Reese IV, and Cedric Gray. Let me say this. Cedric Gray has not done anything. If Cedric Gray was not drafted in the 4th round, Cedric Gray probably wouldn't make this team. But he was drafted in the 4th round, so he will make this team. And I believe that Murray, Gibbons, and Campbell are locks. And I think Otis Reese has probably done enough both on special teams and as depth at inside linebacker to earn a spot on the team. Corner, 6. Now, last week we had 7. We've taken Caleb Farley off. He's got a hamstring injury. It would not surprise me to see Caleb Farley end up on the PUP list, which means that he could come back 6 weeks into the season. 6, Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Brownlee, Judy Lawley, and Avery. Again, I don't think there's anybody that I don't have I don't think there's anybody that's got a shot to make the team outside of those 6 guys. Farley would be the 7th because his money's guaranteed. But again, we could see Farley end up going the PUP route. Safety, 5. Hooker, Adams, Diggs, Molden, and Matthew Jackson. Again, we had 5 last week. Diggs, we did have 4. Diggs makes it 5. Specialists, 3. Folk, Stonehouse, and Cox. So I don't think there's any question there as far as those guys making the team. And Stonehouse was punting in practice this week and just booming the crap out of the ball. So the current 53-man roster, Haskins, Brunskill, Reese, and Bohannon in, Watson, Levin, Rush out, Farley to the PUP list, and Arden Key is still, as our expectation is, suspended. Quarterback, Levis, Rudolph, Willis. Running back, Spears, Pollard, Haskins. Receiver, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI, Kinsey, and Jackson. Tight end, Wiley, Okonkwo, Vanette, and Martin Robinson. Offensive lines, Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Radens, PT, Rupchich, Christian, Brunskill. Defensive line, Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day, Coburn, and Bohanna. Outside linebacker, Landry, Weaver, Ray, and Harrell. Inside linebacker, Murray, Gibbons, Campbell, Reese, and Gray. Corner, Sneed, Awuzie, McCreary, Brownlee, Judy Lawley, and Avery. Safety, Hooker, Adams, Diggs, Molden, Jackson. Specialist, Folk, Stonehouse, and Cox. 615-737-1025. The starters are out tomorrow, but the players that I am looking forward to seeing, we got a couple we'll get to next. First, though, I want to tell you about Window Nation. I absolutely love Window Nation. They are a reputable company. They are a company that I trust. I know this because I had them out to my home. I asked them, I said, what windows do I need to replace? They said, you do not need to spend any money with us to replace your windows. Your windows are good. I said, wait a minute. You drove all the way out here and you're going to tell me that that's how I know they're trustworthy. I can't tell you about the other companies because I haven't been as hands-on as I have with Window Nation, but I absolutely love Window Nation. And not only that, they've got great value this month during their anniversary sale. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free. And you pay nothing for 24 months. And if you act now, you get an extra $250 credit. Again, Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, pay nothing for 24 months, and bam, an extra $250 credit. Sale ends August 31st. Schedule a fast in-home estimate right now by calling 866-90NATION or visiting windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION, windownation.com.
Chance Campbell continues to show up around football. Can you talk about kind of the improvements that he's made throughout camp, and do you look at maybe giving him more play time higher up on the depth chart?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of bodies in that spot right now, so he'll get plenty of play time. But he's done a really nice job of taking advantage of the opportunity. He's made plays in the game. He keeps continuing to show up in practice, and so that's what you ask of guys that are trying to take hold of an opportunity is that, can you do it multiple days in a row? Can you stack 4 or 5 days, 4 or 5 practices, and continue to play at that level? And so far he has, and that's really good to see. I think, Quan's kind of in the same boat. He's put together a handful of really nice days, and can you keep doing that at that level? Is it really who you are as a player? Are you really taking advantage of the opportunity? And so far, I think, both of those guys have done that. They're both in similar cases where they're trying to prove themselves and have put together some good tape. And so far, so good for them. They've done a nice job.
Brian Callahan talking about Chance Campbell and Jaquan Jackson. So even though the starters are not playing in the game tomorrow night, which I'm disappointed about, but I get it. It's how the NFL works nowadays. There are still some good players to watch. So here's my list. Number 1, Chance Campbell. Keeps making plays, made plays in the preseason game, made plays in practice. And I've said this, I'm not sold that Jack Gibbons should just be given the inside linebacker position. Maybe we should see what Chance Campbell has starting, with Kenneth Murray at some time in practice, see what it looks like, because Chance Campbell keeps making plays. I expect him to be very active tomorrow night. Number 2, Jaquan Jackson, the other guy that Brian Callahan talked about. Dude is a rabbit with the football in his hands. He keeps scoring touchdowns, keeps catching the ball well, keeps running with the ball well, keeps returning the ball well. Again, you can't hide good. Number 3, the backup pass rushers. Carl Lawson signed with Dallas this week. And so one of these backup pass rushers, whether it's Shane Ray or Jalen Harrell or Thomas Rush or whoever, one of these guys is going to start, Weaver, with Arden Key. And let's see if any of them can get to the quarterback against Seattle's backups. Granted, I am not a believer that much in Arden Key's game. Number 4, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. And I'll throw Gabe Jeudy-Lally in there too. The Titans have 2 injured corners that are old. The old man on the program used to say you can never have enough corners, which means at some point these guys are going to be playing against legit receivers in the NFL. They held their own against Lockett and DK Metcalf and those guys reportedly. Let's see them again against the backups, but let's see them again this week and see if they can do better than Trey Avery did, allowing a 33-yard conversion on 3rd and 9. And the last guy is Mason Kinsey. He's been with the ones this week. He's made plays. So can he justify a 7th receiver on the 53-man roster when all is said and done? Can this be the moment that Mason Kinsey breaks through? Everybody enjoy the game tomorrow night, Titans and Seahawks. We will be back with a full recap, a Titans Monday, 2 o'clock. Stillman and Company. Have a great weekend. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.